For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving the natural landscapes that define our nation. Nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters. Together with firearm, ammunition, and archery manufacturers, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. For more information, visit outdoorstewards.org.
Vision loss is not something that you feel until it happens.
Most people lose their vision from diseases like macular degeneration and glaucoma, not at birth.
3 million Americans have glaucoma, and half don't even know it.
11 million people in the United States have macular degeneration.
So many eye disorders can be treated if caught early.
Make a plan today to get your eyes checked.
Visit brightfocus.org to learn more.
Yes! I finally got my first phone!
It is exciting. Let's learn a few things about online safety first.
We can secure our world. Online security depends on you and me. Install apps.
Your home for the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game. WMKT Eastover, Columbia. A Cumulus media station.
It is caught!
The early game with former Gamecock Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen on the Game Network and streaming on the 5 The Game app. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
It off Tessa, right wing three, bang! Three-pointer, Tessa Johnson.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bags.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres on the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Good morning, early game crew. As you heard right there, my last day here in Phoenix. It's the early game, partially live from Phoenix. I'm Elijah Campbell, chilling here in Phoenix, Arizona. One last time for the Gamecocks trip to the Final Four of the national championship game yesterday. He's Preston Thorne. She's Jen Jensen back home in Columbia, South Carolina. And man, there's so much to be able to get to from what happened over the weekend. But I think the simple starting point is just starting from what happened yesterday. Unfortunately, for the second year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks women's basketball team falling just one game short, and it wasn't particularly close. UCLA 79, South Carolina 51. Another year, Preston Thorne, another year of making it to the national championship game, something already incredibly difficult, and another year of losing in a manner that does put a little bit of a damper on a really good season.
Yeah, man, if we could have done this show, say on right after the UConn game, this might have had a whole different tune.
It would have
been a whole different thing. But I think we got to make the decision right now. This decision we have to make. It's kind of unfortunately like when you go into a funeral. Are we going to have a celebration of the life that was, or are we going to have a mourning of what we just did? And I think you can do a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd be remiss if we just stayed in the idea of, we lost another championship, we got blown out by 20, because yes, those are facts and they must be acknowledged, but they are not the encompassing whole concept of what the year was. So we're going to do a little bit of both, but we do sort of have to make that decision on where we're going to focus our attention.
And that is why we have 3 hours, Preston Thorne, to be
Correct.
able to do exactly that. And I think the place to start is just kind of looking at the game yesterday and what our expectations were, in the aftermath of the UConn game, of dethroning the defending national champion, beating an undefeated team, and everything that went with it. It felt like this team was kind of destined at that point. When you do something like that, it feels like you are just destined to reach the ultimate goal. But what kind of got lost in the shuffle was how good UCLA is, right? I mean, that's that UCLA team is incredible. And in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll give them more of their specific, their flowers, because they do deserve it. UCLA just beat you on Sunday. And that was like my main takeaway in the game. Look, I don't think I've seen a team take away the things that South Carolina does on offense as well as UCLA did in that game. This is a South Carolina team all year, Preston Thorne, that lived in the paint, right? They lived in the paint. They would constantly, I know I would get on this microphone and talk constantly about how many times or how many shots that South Carolina got at the rim each game, right? And it's always north of 30. Very rarely did you get anything, even maybe like 30 would be a low number for this team. And yesterday, South Carolina only got 21 attempts at the rim. And then you take into account they only made 9 of them, is a real testament to the interior dominance that UCLA had. Couple that with just a dominant offensive rebounding performance. I got the stat sheet in front of me right here. UCLA only missed 39 shots in the game, and they managed to grab 21 offensive rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty remarkable in a national championship game to not just dominate the glass, but grab over half your missed shots is one of those things in the game that if you just told me that before the game was going to tip off that was going to happen, I would have told you South Carolina need to have one of their best shooting nights of the year. And then you look at the end of the game and Carolina is 2 of 15 from 3. And that tells you pretty much all you need to know in terms of how this thing kind of got out of hand.
Yeah, when you go by the metrics, again, I love having specific metrics so that it's not a mystery when you look up and you see the score is what it is. When you shoot 29% from the field, it's probably not going to be a good night for you. When you get out-rebounded, when you was doubled up at some points throughout the game, being out-rebounded, you're probably not going to win. When you lose the turnover battle, you're probably not going to win. And I think as a player, that makes it less – yes, you have the emotions of we lost this game, we were so close to winning the championship. But then when you look at the stats, you do the Alonzo Mourning meme. It's like – yeah, what I'm saying? Yeah. That's kind of how it goes. But what my overarching thought from watching this game was, man, it was fun having Carmelo Cardoso. Remember that?
Yeah. I think watching Lauren Betts made you reminiscent of looking at a player that when she got the ball in the painted area was going to score.
Yeah, the nostalgia was setting in for 3 years ago. I was like, man, that was fun because they had Carmelo Cardoso. And I even think a more skilled Carmelo Cardoso. Like, she is awesome in the paint, just the way she plays. Elijah, and I know we're going to get to that at 7, but I'd be remiss to say this, man. I text you with unlimited amount of exclamation points on that block that she had on Madison Booker in the Final Four game. I mean, she was backpedaling, open up her hips, flips her hips, does not foul, gets her left. It was crazy, the athleticism. And so, yeah, my overarching thought I was watching, I was like, man, that was fun having a dominant big in the middle, and we didn't have that, and it finally showed up for us.
Yeah, you look at the final stat line for Lauren Betts, and it's 14 points, 11 rebounds, 6 of 10, and it felt like, how did she only make 6 shots in that game? It felt like there were just more. And she catches the ball in the paint, and she's so patient with like her post moves. And I think that's one big difference in the game was one team, when they got the ball into the painted area, was getting great shots, and South Carolina was not. Like, the shot quality that UCLA was getting was significantly better. If you're just eye testing, right? Like, you're not looking at the score, like you're watching a TV broadcast and there's no score bug, and you're just looking at who's getting the easier shots, which offense is just looking easier and smoother. It was clearly UCLA, because when South Carolina got in the paint, they were swarmed with bodies. I think South Carolina tried to play Lauren Betts straight up, which I don't mind. I mean, if you pull it off, here's the thing. When you play a dominant big and you can go one-on-one with that big, then you don't have to help off shooters. You make them shoot shots over you, right? And then those paint touches are harder baskets to make. Kind of like what South Carolina did with, or UCLA did with South Carolina. The paint touches were hard paint touches. Like, you got into the paint, sure, but you were surrounded by bodies. You couldn't shoot over whoever it is that is guarding them. Joyce had a hard time whenever being guarded by any of UCLA's bigs, just getting shots off over them. So when you can play it straight up, that's the preferred method, right? I've always thought that if you just play it straight up in the post and, a post player, a dominant big is having a hard time shooting over you, you don't have to help off shooters. Everything else kind of takes care of itself. But South Carolina couldn't do that, right? I mean, Lauren Betts got the ball in the post, guarded by Joyce, Medina, whoever, Miriam, and she was scoring, and it was looking easy. And then you had to start fronting the post. When you front the post, the pass would just go over. UCLA, to their credit, made some really good entry passes,
nice
and
pass.
then it made it even harder at that point. Then it became unguardable. Then you have to help off shooters. And once you start helping off shooters and UCLA gets kickouts like they did seemingly most of the second half, that's how they end up knocking down 8 threes.
Yeah, I mean, you one of the terms that you brought awareness to me is this idea of gravity, and I think the idea of Lauren Betts and the gravity that she pulls everybody into when she's in the paint makes a difference. But Elijah, I think I'm gonna attempt to tell the story of this game in 3 shots, 3 specific shots that tell the story of this game. Help me out on this. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Medina Olcott misses her first 3-pointer. I think that was extreme. She missed her first 2. And I think those 2 shots were extremely important because I think, and this is obviously playing an if game, and this is if ifs was whatever. We're not saying that, but I think if she hits that first one and maybe she hits the second one, that changes the scout for UCLA because they clearly were going to let her. And I will also say it wasn't bad shots because this 3-point game has been developing for Medina throughout the season. So it was there. But she missed the first 2. And both teams had a decision to make at that point. UCLA decided to continue with the scout, and South Carolina had to decide whether or not they were going to put the throttle on her, and they didn't. And I thought that was an interesting idea. What do you think about that as part of the story of the game?
Yo, the thing with Medina for sure, especially after the first one, because the second one she missed, you could tell she was course correcting, right? She tried to get more arc on it, and in the process of doing so, almost banked it in, and that's not how you want to shoot that shot. And if you look at how UCLA guarded South Carolina, they dared a lot of non-shooters to shoot. And that's why the shot selection, I think Carolina got baited into some really bad shots in that first half, right? Yeah. Like Miriam Dowda shooting a mid-range jump shot. Like insert Patrick Ewing clip here. Like, is that your shot? When do you shoot that shot, right? Pull up contested mid-range shots. When do they shoot those, right? Like those are already kind of just bad shots when you look at efficiency numbers, right? This is not like the mid-range jumper is still aesthetically beautiful. It's still a fun part of the game, but there's a reason that it's been phased out at different levels. And because it is, even your best teams are only making that 45% of the time. And if you'd have told me going into the game that UCLA forces South Carolina to settle for more mid-range jumpers than they do shots in the paint and at the rim, I could have told you then, game, blouses, right? They took 26 mid-range jumpers, only hit 7 of them. And some of them weren't contested. That's the wild thing, too. UCLA was giving them those shots, and South Carolina fell into the trap of taking them and settling on offensive possessions. And you saw pretty easily, pretty early on, what that settling ended up looking like. And when you keep missing those shots, it adds up over the course of possessions when you're getting tough contested shots that UCLA wants you to take. And then UCLA is getting the shots you don't want them to take. It's going to add up. And that's how you end up getting doubled up at one point in the third quarter.
My second shot, the Gabriela Jaquez and one.
Ooh, yes.
I think that told the story of the game because it showed the extra effort and intensity on the boards. It showed how she was just everywhere, and it kind of showed how UCLA had another gear that they were playing in that South Carolina just could not get to. And I think that play exemplified. If I showed you that play, I'd say this was the story of the game. I think you would say yes.
Oh, for sure. I think it was by far a microcosm. And even after the game, when you're talking to some of the players, they certainly, acknowledge that UCLA, like Tanai Latson was telling me, like UCLA won, the battle of the floor. I like to call it the war to the floor. Like they were getting 50-50 balls. They were doing a lot of the extra things. And when you get to the national championship game, you got to do the extra things over the course of an entire 40 minutes. And when UCLA had a chance to put the game away and start burying it and increasing that lead, the extra things didn't stop happening. They increased. And I think that play, Preston, is the perfect microcosm of that.
And last but not least, Elijah, second opportunities happen throughout the game, but this particular one where they kick it out, it's a third opportunity. The shot clock's rolling down, and I forget which player it was, hits a step back 3-pointer bank shot.
Yeah.
Quarter, and I was like, oh boy, this might be a long night.
Yep, that was Gianna Neepkins, who was 3 of 7 from 3. That is a player who was 50, 40, 90 on the season, right?
She's awesome.
Yeah, the 50, 40, 90 like standard is like the sole thing that won Steve Nash 2 MVPs.
She's awesome, but she's not awesome enough to hit a step back 3-pointer bank shot from the wing. When you see teams start doing stuff like that, you're like, oh boy. This
especially
might be a long night for us.
Especially when you're missing the few good looks you get and they're banking the threes. Like that is one of those moments that you kind of sit down and you think, oh boy, I think we're in for a long, long day. But coming up next, we'll take your phone calls. Got a couple people calling in that are going to wait patiently throughout the break. We'll get to you guys and we'll discuss taking a look at this season through a little bit of perspective. And I think we have a former NBA player as a good person to get his perspective on when things end when you don't want them to. All that coming up next here in the early game.
All my sports. The Game Network. 107.5 The Game in Columbia. 96.9 The Game in Charleston. 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And 100.5 The Game in Florence.
Powered by Integrated Media. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. For auto, home, and commercial glass. ShepherdsGlass.com. In Chapin and West Columbia. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet studio. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown dealer. Stop by today or shop online 24/7 at HerndonChevy.com.
A pretty big event going on in Augusta later this month. Next weekend, it's a golf tournament. I think you know which one it is. And my friends over at Pro Swing are giving you a chance to win tickets to the Sunday round, to the final round of that tournament at Augusta National Golf Club with access to the Map and Flag Hospitality Building. Yes, that event. How can you get into this and enter? Well, for every full price 2-hour bay booking from now until April 9th over at Pro Swing in either location, Forest Acres, or the Chapin location, you'll receive one entry into their ticket drawing. The drawing date will be April 10th. The winner will be drawn and announced here on 107.5 The Game at the Forest Acres location. So the more you play, the more entries you earn. Again, must be a full price 2-hour booking, cannot be paid with gift cards, cannot be combined with memberships, cannot be combined with other promotions. One entry per qualifying booking. Want more chances and want to find out how you can get more chances? Just go to proswingcolumbia.com for more.
Rainbow Trout. Come for the food, stay for the atmosphere. The Hollow's unique 30-foot tree canopy bar and open kitchen views set the stage for an unforgettable experience. Don't skip their half-off happy hour from Tuesday to Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Enjoy 50% off on signature botanical cocktails, beer, wine, and appetizers. Whether you're unwinding after work or planning a special gathering, the Hollow has you covered. Located at 823 Gervais Street in Columbia, reserve your spot by calling 803-722-4101 or visit them at thehollowsc.com. They're excited to welcome you. The Hollow is our sweet deal of the week. Beginning this Friday at 9 a.m., you can get a $50 gift certificate to the Hollow for
Don't have any accidents to report right now. Good news in that respect, and hope it's a good Monday on the highways. 69 is the high we're looking for. Cooler mornings this week. Overnight low 48. Tomorrow's high 72. 66 on Wednesday. Right now, though, 55 on 107.5 The Game.
The Early Game. Yes! With former Gamecocks Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen. On the Game Network, 107.5 Game app, and the Game TV radio on YouTube. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
For the 6th year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks are dancing to the Final Four.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bags.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
That's right. My last day here in Phoenix. I'm catching a flight here in a few hours to get back home. But big shout out to Forest Lake Travel and Griffin Pools and Spas for sponsoring my coverage out here in Phoenix, Arizona for the Final Four. And if you missed it yesterday, UCLA 79, South Carolina 51 in the game that was for all the marbles. We'll go out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, 803-404-6100. We'll go out to Ray, who calls in first. Good morning, Ray. You get the first word here on the early game. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Happy Monday morning. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I'm going to use the word love about Don Staley's program. We don't make excuses like we do in our football program, which is perpetual. We look for solutions. And Don is doing that right now. But I'll tell you, look at the numbers. I'll tell you, President, it's ugly. 18 of 62. That's our shooting from the field. Take Tessa out of the picture. We're 12 of 50. Now, you're not going to win a national title game playing that way. And I'll tell you where it starts. We are historical for having slow starts. But usually our talent is so good, it just overcomes it. But in a game like that, it's just not going to do it. And Dawn knows it, and she's already looking for it, and hopefully this young lady can do it. We have got to have a championship caliber point guard. We haven't had that here in a while. I love the girl that's retiring, but we have got to have that. We got to have a championship caliber point guard. And hopefully the deal girl from Iowa turns out to be the real deal. Our point guard play yesterday, we're in 45 minutes, we're 1 of 13. And what's even more alarming than that, 2 assists. You're not going to win with that kind of play from your front court. We got to improve there, and Don knows all this, and she'll take care of all this. There's no doubt about it. And we've got to get a post who's a true post player. And Don's going to get that, because I'm going to tell you, people, we're not going nowhere. I mean, next year we're probably going to be ranked, preseason ranked somewhere from number 1 to number 3 with all the talent we got coming back. But the thing I love about Dawn, she don't make excuses. She looks for solutions. And that's the difference between winners and losers in this world. And we'll be back next year. And Dawn, she's motivated to get this roster right. And those girls coming back are motivated to show that they can do better than that. And that's all I got to say. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate the phone call, Ray. 2 things. I think they had the point guard this year. I think Raven Johnson's one of the best winners you're ever going to have in the sport. She had a bad game yesterday. That you can't ignore that part right there. I mean, she was 1 for 7 from the field. Again, she didn't have an assist in that game. And I think a lot of that was credited to UCLA. And it wasn't her best defensive game either, right? I mean, but you're not getting to that game without Raven Johnson. And same thing with Medina Okot, too. Medina did not play her best game. There's a reason she only logged 13 minutes. Because I think you found out pretty early on that she didn't have anything for Lauren Betts. Nobody really on the team had anything for Lauren Betts in that game, especially when it came to keeping her off the glass. And when Medina is not able to dominate the boards like that, I don't know how many times we look at a stat sheet after a game and see that Medina only had 3 rebounds. that's not going to win you a national championship game, which is correct. But I don't think you get here at all if it's not for Raven Johnson, Medina Okot. Just one of those games where they just got beat by a team that played significantly better than them that day.
Yeah, totally agreed. But that's how you have to have in those championship games. You have to have your championship players show up and make winning plays, and that's what Dawn's been preaching all game, and that's not what happened on Sunday.
Yeah, you did not get it when you needed to, which is unfortunate, but you got it a lot during this season, right? And that's again how you get there, right? And then we'll go throughout the course of the show, we will be talking about, keeping things from that perspective, right? It's hard to get to this event 3 straight years, and they've done it 3 straight years. And I think this team's definitely going to miss what Raven Johnson brought. Just unfortunately for Raven, I hate it for her that is the game that she ends an illustrious career at South Carolina on. Back to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, 803-404-6100. We'll get to Jack. Good morning, Jack. Welcome to the early game.
Good morning, sir. Happy. It's a good morning. We lost. I just got off from work, so I just wanted to call in and take my hat off on my Gamecocks. They had a beautiful season. Mm-hmm. You're right. We do got one of the best guards in women college basketball. We just had a bad shooting night. So, or evening, however you want to put it. But they'll be back. I truly believe they'll be back. And you got about over half your team will be back with what you got coming in. So, kudos to them. We're not going to sit here and cry like Gino did in the UConn game. We took everything from them. So we got something to take our hats off to. We just couldn't bring the trophy back home, fellas. But we're going to give it another shot. Go Gamecocks.
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate the call, Jack. And yeah, I mean, Dawn definitely took the high road. Even yesterday, complimenting UCLA and Corey Close, who won her first title, became only the 9th college basketball coach to win a national championship at the women's game since 2000. There are only 9 of them. And a couple of coaches on that list of 9 are retired, like Muffet McGraw, Tara Vanderveer. Like, the list of coaches in the sport that have made it to the mountaintop, very, very small. Dawn Staley gave respect when it's due. Certainly appreciate her doing that. We got about 2 minutes here, so we'll go to Joe next. Good morning, Joe. Welcome to the early game.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, listen, I think Raven Johnson is the first All-American point guard that Dawn has had since she's been at the University of South Carolina. If I'm wrong, please check me on that. I thought that UCLA came, the 5 seniors that they have on their team, they played like it. They had a calm about themselves on both sides of the ball. They knew what they wanted to do, and they executed it on both sides of the ball. We looked like we were rushed to do everything on offense, on the offensive side of the ball. We took bad shots, we made bad passes, and that had a lot to do with the team that UCLA was. They were the better team yesterday, man. I don't think anyone could have whooped UCLA yesterday. I haven't watched them play all year long, but that center, if you want to talk about something that's generational, that's the best center I've seen in a while, man. She played ball on both sides of the ball. She made us take shots that we didn't want to take, and she had control on the offensive side of the ball. She gave those guards the shots that they wanted to take when they took them, and they hit them. They were just a better team yesterday, man, and I tip my hats off to them. We're a great team. I appreciate what they did for us this year. I enjoyed watching them play from game 1 to the last game. 6 Final Four appearances. If you want to talk about something, that's big for us. And I look forward to seeing them down there next year for the 7th time. Great season. And UCLA deserved what they got yesterday because they were simply the better team, bottom line.
Absolutely.
Great show as usual, guys. I hope that you all have a great day, and I hope that you all enjoyed your Easter.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call, Joe. Yeah, a lot of truth there, Joe. A lot of truth. You ran into a much better team yesterday. But putting the season in perspective, Joe, I thought did a really good job of putting things in perspective. There's a clip from an NBA superstar after a playoff exit that I wanted to play coming up next that I think really puts a lot of things into perspective. And after losing in the title game 2nd straight year, and especially to the teams that you lost to, I think it's important to hear. So we'll hear from that player coming up next here in the early game.
Wow, what a play! The Game Network. Columbia, Charleston, Florence, and Myrtle Beach.
We have a new way for you to call the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Just dial pound 250, and when prompted, punch in the keywords, the game. And that's it. Again, pound 250 with the keywords, the game.
Press here for the good folks at AAA Heating and Air. Listen, I say it all the time. It's wrong jacket weather. It was cool this morning, cooler than I anticipated, and it's probably going to be warmer than I expect by the time I get out the studio. That's just how it is. And that's how your HVAC system has to deal with. Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's hot, and everything in between. Your HVAC system is working overtime, and the good folks at AAA Heating and Air understand that your home comfort is their priority. So before the true heat of the summer settles in, make sure your system is ready to go the distance. Our expert qualified technicians provide a thorough inspection and cleaning to get your unit in prime condition. But don't just fix problems, we prevent them. Putting your mind at ease so you can stay cool when it matters the most. Don't wait for a breakdown. Call now and let the pros at AAA Heating and Air get you ready for the summer. Call us today at 803-920-3771. That's 803-920-3771.
Brothers Home Services.
No significant slowdowns on the highways. Don't have any reports of any accidents. Great there. 69 for the high today. Overnight low 48. Tomorrow's high 72. 45 for that overnight low, and 66 on Wednesday. And it's the mornings are going to be cool this week. Really, we're going to be in the 40s, maybe 51 by Friday in those overnight lows. So definitely jacket weather, at least to get you started. 55 currently on 107.5 The Game.
The Early Game with former Gamecock Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen on the Game Network, 107.5 Game app, and the Game TV radio on YouTube. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
For the 6th year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks are dancing to the Final Four.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bag.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Yep. I can understand the emotion watching her team get boat raced in the national championship game. It's a bummer. And it happened last year. UConn beat you 82-59 in last year's national championship game. UCLA beat you 79-51 in this year's. And when you lose a game like that, it can certainly feel like the failures of not winning a championship are highlighted. The emotion of falling short runs pretty strong. And I get that. You get to the national championship game, you give yourself a chance to achieve the ultimate goal in the sport, and you fall short, and it's in a manner in which you really wish it didn't happen. Now, there is the age-old debate of would you rather get blown out in that game or lose in incredibly heartbreaking fashion? I don't think it matters one way or another, right? I've experienced both. Player, fan, get it. But when you're watching the second half and it feels like there's no chance of coming back, it can be a pretty excruciating watch. And it can feel like a lot of the other things that you did that were good during the season are going to be put on the back burner. It's hard to look at, throughout, the perspective needed to be able to kind of get over the game, especially as a player. This question I asked a lot of the players yesterday, how you put this season in perspective, because you won an SEC regular season championship. You got a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. You made it to the Final Four. You made it to the national championship game. You even beat an undefeated UConn team and became the story of the sport for a multitude of reasons for 24 hours. But it kind of reminded me of a time, too, where Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best players in the NBA, led the Bucks to a 1 seed, had a fantastic regular season, and they get beat in, I think it was 6 or 7 games, by the Miami Heat, who were an 8 seed. And it felt disappointing at the time, but that Miami Heat team ended up going to the NBA Finals. That was a team that played better than anybody else in their conference, was playing their best basketball at the right time, and it knocked out the Bucks early. But something that Giannis Antetokounmpo said when he was asked whether or not their season was a failure after that game stuck with me in 2023. And it was the first thing that I thought of when I was sitting in that arena watching that second half go down. Here's what Giannis Antetokounmpo had to say when he was asked that question just a few years ago.
I just asked Bud the exact same question, but I'm curious for you. Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh, my God. Okay, because I'm not that up. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay, do you get the promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success. And if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. So there's always steps to it. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure. That's what you're telling me. No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why you ask me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other people's gonna win. And this year, somebody else is gonna win. Simple as that. We're gonna come back next year, try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball, you know, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures? No, it was not. It was steps to it, you know, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one. You know, sorry that I didn't want to make it personal because you asked me the same question last year, and last year I was in the right mind space to answer the question back.
The reason I wanted to play that too is because I don't want to look at this season as a failure. Did it suck how it ended? Absolutely. Was that a brutal way to end a fantastic season? Absolutely. But I think what's important is being able to take into perspective too and look at the fact that you've played in 3 straight national championship games. As a program, you have won 3 national titles in less than a decade's time. It's a bummer how it ended yesterday, but I think this program's in pretty good shape, Preston Thorne, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little bummed the Final Four is in Columbus, Ohio next year because I fully plan on being there, and it's going to be a significant downgrade compared to the city that I've been spending time in for the last 4 days.
That is not quite the same Cedar.
No, absolutely not. But this program's in a position where I can complain about that because guess what? I expect them to be there next year.
You know, man, as I'm looking at this, I think, I love that clip because Giannis is such a nice dude. He felt himself getting riled up, and he immediately did not like what he was about to say. And Giannis being Giannis is always awesome about that clip. But, Elijah, when you think about dynasties, I immediately thought of, well, some of these dynasties are the dynastic franchises that you think about. Guess what? They have lost to the Patriots, the Chiefs, going basketball, the Spurs, right? These people that when we get a little bit of history and we get a little time behind us, we look back and we say, oh man, the Patriots, they must have won 10 in a row. No, they didn't. They went to some, they won a lot, they lost a lot. Same thing with the Chiefs. They've been to several Super Bowls, 5. You win 3, you lose 2. And that's sort of how the process goes. In retrospect, when we zoom out and we get the benefit of time, we'll obviously see that this team was dominant, but losing in the championship, losing on the way onto the championship is part of any dynasty. Any dynasty in sports, this is all part of the process.
Yeah, it certainly is. And if you look at those Chiefs teams that lost in the Super Bowl, whether it be to Tampa Bay or to Philadelphia, those games weren't particularly close either. They also had similar ends to their season.
That's a great point about them also. I don't think anybody would say if we was to tell the story of NFL football from 2020 on, we're going to say, you're not going to say, oh, yeah, well, the Chiefs did get blown out in those 2 Super Bowls. You'll be like, yeah, they lost 2, but man, did they win those 3 or whatever the case is. And so, yeah, they are obviously on their way. And I think being the focal point of the sport is an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, they're the only team in the sport that's been to the last 6 Final Fours, right? And in a majority of those Final Fours, you have won in the semifinal to make it to the national championship. And I think all you can really ask in any sport is have a team that is built to contend for that every single year. And not only does this team contend for it, some years they'll find themselves being favorites to win it, right? And as we know in sports too, sometimes just because you're the favorite doesn't guarantee that you're going to actually end up winning it. Sometimes these things happen. And trust me, I didn't enjoy watching UCLA run it up and run them out of the gym in Phoenix yesterday. But again,
that's the beauty of sport, though. That's the beauty.
That's why we lace them up, man. That's why you lace them up. You still got to go out there and play that last 40 minutes. And credit to UCLA. We'll give them their flowers in the next hour of the show because they certainly earned it the way they played yesterday. And some years, somebody else is going to be a national champion. But coming up next, we took our victory lap when South Carolina beat Texas on Thursday night. The last 2 games of the series were played. South Carolina didn't win, but are we a little more intrigued with how they've been playing despite the losses? Preston and I will discuss that coming up next here in the early game.
All my sports.
Final segment of hour number 1 here on the early game. My last 2 hours of doing the show from Phoenix, and I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm going to be really excited to not have my alarm go off at 1:30 a.m. local time.
Yeah, that's dedication.
Can't imagine why.
Woo!
Makes you appreciate radio versus TV, right?
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I know we're video streaming this, so you could watch me from, where I'm staying here in Phoenix. But, like, buddy, it's nice to be able to, kind of roll out of bed, refresh your brain a little bit, and then be able to get on it and not have to put on makeup and actually look good. Because I wouldn't say that I'm in the category of looking good right now. I wouldn't say that, the optics right now are my strong suit here. But it's been a good time. I thoroughly enjoy Phoenix, but I look forward to coming back and having a little bit of a regularity, right? But one thing that is kind of irregular is the weekend series in baseball started on Thursday, ended by Saturday. So after the first game, South Carolina beats Texas. It became the story of the sport that night. And we knew it was still tough to be able to beat them in a series, but you had an opportunity for 2 straight games to be able to take the series against that team. And unfortunately, South Carolina fell just short in terms of accomplishing those goals. Friday, losing 5-3 against Texas after Texas got up on them early. And then Saturday, losing 4-1, a game in which South Carolina only gets 2 hits, but is able to strike out 15 batters. All of that said, Preston Thorne, yeah, the record still does not reflect one of a good baseball team. If we're doing the whole Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are, then you're looking at a team that's 15-18 and, 2-10 in conference play. But I do think, just by looking at what happened and how the games went down, yeah, clearly some frustration, right? You'd like to be able to hit a hell of a lot better than you did over the weekend. 4 runs in 2 games isn't going to beat a lot of teams in this league, but we've seen this team play significantly worse against that level of competition.
Well, yeah, you obviously have seen a different team take the field under the new leadership that has been with everything that happened. I guess that's 2 weeks ago now. You've seen a different team, though they're not winning, and we're not here for the idea of, they played them close. You can't ignore that there is a different, the results have been different. I will remind you all, the last time from the last game from the last coach was 22-6.
In 7 innings, mind you.
In 7 innings. We haven't seen anything like that. Now what it really makes you wonder is how much of the season was actually lost throughout those times, because this team feels like they're just they're in recovery mode from maybe some of the bad habits, some of the bad attitudes, some of the bad things that were instituted during that time. They're still not a good team because they haven't been able to convert or win any of these series, but it feels as if they're playing closer to maybe what they probably should have been all the time, which is a middle of the pack SEC team.
Right. And then, you have an opportunity this week. Tomorrow they're playing at 6:30 against College of Charleston at home. And then you have your weekend series at Missouri. Missouri, always a very beatable opponent. I think that's a really good test, too, to see if you've learned from the mistakes this year to be able to actually take advantage of an advantageous matchup, right? I mean, Missouri's better, I guess, better than they usually have been, but it's still Missouri at the end of the day. That's a program that you should still be better than. That's a program that I think is destined, even though they're trying a little bit more now, still at the bottom of the SEC in terms of just season-on-season success. But I think we've now kind of boiled it down in terms of what the biggest issue is, and I think that's hitting. I think you probably have a little too much inconsistency with hitting. Now, then when you do get it together, you see what you saw on Thursday night, right? Like the pitching was great. You got 9 runs, you got a killer game from Patrick Evans. Will Craddock showed up, and Will Craddock even, had some moments over the weekend too. But I think the most part, I think at least the team identity's figured out a little bit. You're going to have to win a lot of games based off your pitching, right? And the ceiling of your pitching staff is what's going to be able to keep you in games. You just got to be able to manufacture more than 4 runs in 2 games to be able to get the results you want.
Yeah, and as you move forward, that's especially bad news, I would say, for Monty in his campaign, because he's supposed to be the hitting guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's making his campaign, or if he's out there offering his services for a job that's yet to come open, we haven't seen the improvement in the thing that he is supposed to be. Especially, he has one special skill, and that's to make people hit, and he hasn't been able to do that with them.
Yeah, that part's still not there. And then when it comes to errors too, you had 3 errors in those last 2 games too. Again, one of the pillars that we've had for this team all season long is, are you at least taking care of your business in the field? Unfortunately, didn't do that as well over the weekend. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up, though. Yes, our focus will be on South Carolina losing the national championship game, but UCLA deserves some flowers because they went in their Phoenix and they took it. We'll discuss that and give UCLA credit where credit is due coming up next here in the early game.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet studio. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown dealer. Stop by today or shop online 24/7 at herndonchevy.com.
Spring is here. It is definitely here. If your home still looks like winter, well, it's time to do something about that. Here's what you should do about that. Zerorez Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning has a deal that is incredibly hard to beat. All you got to do is mention 107.5 The Game. You'll get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned plus a free hallway for just $109. And for a limited time, take $100 off Air Duct Cleaning because no one cleans like Zerorez using the patented electrolyzed water, zero water technology. That means no soap, no residue, no harsh chemicals. And your carpets are left incredibly soft. Over time, dust and debris build up and end right back up on your floors, and that's why cleaning both just makes sense. Your air ducts and your carpet makes perfect sense. With over 20,000 reviews and a 4.9-star rating, you can trust Zerorez. Just hit them up online, zerorezcolumbia.com, or call 803-262-4020.
Sponsored by Credit Karma. When your money's on the line, are you okay with a basic free tax service? Get the confidence of TurboTax with free Fed and state filing on Intuit Credit Karma. Around 37% of filers qualify. Simple 1040s only. See details at turbotax.com/free.
It's the first day of the first grade, and she found a new best friend. It's a laid back Sunday afternoon. You wish would never end. The homemade taste of Bluebell and good friends gathered round. The good old days are being made right now.
New Bluebell Brookie a la mode ice cream brings brownies and cookies together like never before. Big chunks of brownies, soft chocolate chip cookie pieces blended into a rich, creamy brown sugar ice cream. It's not too good to be true. It's just that good.
The good old days are being made right now. The good old days are being made right now.
Look for Bluebell ice cream at your neighborhood Food Lion. Make your dream pool a reality this summer with Aquarian Pools of Columbia. Specializing in residential and commercial pool construction, Aquarian Pools of Columbia offer complimentary design services that bring your vision to life. Whether you need a new backyard oasis or your old pool needs a renovation, their expert builders are ready to deliver just in time for summer. With 54 years in business, if you can dream it, they can build it. Visit them online at aquarianpools.com or call 803-732-3636 today. Everybody loves streaming till you have to pay for it. Just download the 107.5 The Game app and stream us for free. It's the Game Network Traffic Report from the Schroeder's Towing Traffic Center. Broken down and need a tow or even free signage for your lot? Dial pound 250 and use keyword tow truck today.
Well this morning, and we don't seem to have any accidents to report. Good news there. Cloudy and 69 today. Overnight low of 48. The overnight lows are going to be in the 40s all week long, mid to upper 40s. So to keep that in mind, might need a jacket to get you going each morning this week. Tomorrow's high 72, 66 on Wednesday. It's 55 right now on 107.5 The Game.
for the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game. WNKT Eastover, Columbia. A Cumulus media station. The Early Game with former Gamecock Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen on the Game Network and streaming on the 107.5 The Game app. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
For the 6th year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks are dancing to the Final Four.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bag.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell, live from Phoenix, Arizona, on the heels of the Final Four and the national championship game, brought to you by Griffin Pools and Spas and Forest Lake Travel. He's Preston Thorne. She's Jen Jensen. They're back at the home studios in Columbia, South Carolina. And we are going to be reacting to this game all morning long. It's UCLA 79, South Carolina 51. And for the second straight year, the Gamecocks fall just one game short in the national title game. And Preston, a lot of the conversation today, whether it's going to be on our show or the shows following us, it's going to be South Carolina focused. Duh, we're the flagship home of the South Carolina Gamecocks. That's what we do. But I don't think you can have a proper discussion on what happened yesterday in Mortgage Matchup Arena. Terrible name for an arena, mind you. Don't love it. Doesn't have a good ring to it. Need a new sponsor if you're the Phoenix Suns or the Phoenix Mercury. But I don't think you can have the discussion of what happened in that game without giving credit where credit is due, because I think it's easy to kind of get so Carolina-centric and SEC-centric that you ignore what other teams kind of have done all year long. Now, we paid attention to UConn because, there is clearly a rivalry there between South Carolina and UConn. They're the two big premier programs in the sport. Yes, we are really locked in on Texas because you've played them a bajillion times in the last couple of years, and there's so much familiarity there that has breeded its own true rivalry. And then, of course, with not a rivalry, because LSU still has to beat you every now and then for that to be considered a rivalry, but the LSU series is one that's hyper competitive and emotional by nature because of the coaches and because of, Mylasia Fulwiley. So there's other reasons to pay closer attention to other programs in the country. UCLA maybe not necessarily being on the radar of South Carolina fans, and understandably so. You didn't play them on the schedule. They're in the Big Ten, but I think it can get really easy and get lost just how great that team was, right? You didn't lose to a nobody yesterday. You lost to one of the premier teams in the sport. They were part of that group of 4, the 4 1 seeds that were head and shoulders better than everybody else. And I think this is a good time to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, 37-1. The one being to Texas, right? So it's not as if this team was a bunch of slouches coming in, but I think it starts at the very top. I, for one, Corey Close gained a fan in me. In listening to her speak over the Final Four, watching her coach, watching the way her teams played, obviously known about her because she's been around for a long time. But this was really, I guess, the first weekend where I got a chance to really, really pay attention to her. And so I think it starts there. And I don't know if you heard the story because you were watching it, but how cool a story was it that for 10 years she got to visit John Wooden for every other Tuesday for 10 years.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah. Did you hear that story?
No.
So she got a chance. So she would visit with John Wooden on every other Tuesday for the last 10 years of his life. And she would essentially go and talk, and they obviously became very close. But I mean, man, talk about a coach, education and coaching. That is pretty wild. And so, so she was homegrown. And that's, again, once I got over my feelings of losing the game and getting blown out and all that stuff, when I really started to look at the other side, man, you see a coach who is homegrown, a coach who has been there for a long time, a coach who obviously had love and dedication to their players. I mean, it's a great story if it was happening against somebody else. If it wasn't against us, it would be a really cool story.
Yeah, I mean, that's a program that's been building, right? And that's a group of seniors that were in that starting lineup that I think scored 170 consecutive points at some point in this tournament.
They scored every point in the Final Four.
Yeah, like that's pretty remarkable, right? In today's college basketball, seeing that is very admirable. Like a senior class was able to stick together and be able to end their season like that, even if it comes at your expense. I think you can sit back when it comes to accepting the fact that you lost to a better team on Sunday. I think that makes it maybe a little easier, because what this UCLA team did kind of, I think, was underappreciated maybe by the women's college basketball world, right? You mentioned 37-1, only loss being to Texas. They won 23 quad one games, Preston Thorne. 23.
I don't know how you sneak up on someone being 37-1, but they kind of managed to do it. I don't know how it works.
They managed, because as good of a great of a coach Corey Close is, maybe just doesn't have that same that aura that, a Don Staley, a Gino Auriemma, a Kim Mulkey have, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe maybe not the place in historical significance that Vic Schaefer has had with what he did at Mississippi State and then what he's done at Texas since. Like it somehow does get lost in the shuffle. It's a team that went 18-0 in the Big Ten. And I know there's a lot of debate in the women's college basketball circle. How good was the Big Ten really? But they had 6 teams in the net top 20. 6. That's a good league. And UCLA has to do a whole lot of traveling, right? I get tired getting jet lagged going from one part of the country to the other. And UCLA has a ridiculous travel schedule, and they managed to go through the Big Ten unscathed. And the last game they played in the Big Ten, mind you, against Iowa in the Big Ten tournament title game, they beat Iowa, a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, by 51 points.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, Elijah, because I didn't hear Coach Close, Coach Corey, complaining the way Mick Cronin was, who's her partner in the men's on the men's basketball side. He's out there complaining every day about why they can't get it done, and they are playing essentially the same schedule, and they're winning. So that's really interesting that you said that. You talk about the difference between winners and whiners, and obviously Coach Close is a winner.
Yeah, that university, that athletic department has the two ends of the spectrum right there between winners and whiners. Corey Close, winner; Mick Cronin, whiner. But the thing about Corey Close, and I'm glad that she's been getting her flowers nationally too, because I've always thought she's a great coach. Great follow on Twitter. If you're a basketball coach and you're just looking for drills and things to do, she posts more drills on Twitter about what they do in practice. Yeah, very transparent about it. It's really cool. Gave her a follow a while back. It's really cool to see the insight that she gives in terms of how she runs her team. But one of the quotes from over the weekend, I'm trying to remember this so I don't completely, butcher it here, is that, talent is your floor, character is your ceiling. And and that makes a ton of sense too. That was it's a high character basketball team. All 4 teams that were in the Final Four were high character basketball teams, but all of them are incredibly talented, all high character. The way she runs her team, I think, is an appropriate way to get things done. And what she's built at UCLA is now a national championship program. And when you look at just what they did to South Carolina on Sunday, look, when a team like South Carolina, who is constantly getting 30-plus shots at the rim every single game, we've come on here numerous times and talked about certain games where Carolina, got 35 shots at the rim, or they got 40 shots at the rim. And that's kind of the identity of this team. To just straight up take it away is remarkable. And that's a testament to their coaching staff, to whoever did the scout, the players for executing it, because South Carolina only got 21 looks at the rim in the game, and they were able to alter them enough to where South Carolina only made 9. And I think that's really the big turning point of the game. You made South Carolina shoot more mid-range twos than shots at the rim, and that's just not what South Carolina's been all year long. If you can go to a national title game, play a team as great as South Carolina is, and completely make them do things they don't want to do and impose your will on them, that's the sign of a great team. And UCLA had all of that this season.
And, you're talking about Coach Close, Corey Close, being at UCLA for so long, so she's a veteran in the coaching game, but she's managed to somehow, unlike other coaches, not complain about it, but adapt to the new landscape, right? Through the transfer portal, she had several players that were seniors throughout the transfer portal. Obviously, her best player came early in the transfer portal with Lauren Betts, and then there were other players who came through the portal. She also has underclass recruiting with Gabriela Jaquez. So everything that you talk about building a team, this team was that. And we talk about windows. This was the window, right? They know they had to get it done right now, and they got it done when they needed to.
Yeah, and that's why if you're UCLA and they would have lost that game, it probably would have hurt them worse, right?
Oh,
because
I
that
mean,
was the window. That was the chance.
This is the chance that they have. Not saying that she's not a great coach and that it's not a great program, but you understand that when there are windows, you have to. And again, there's good teams and then there's special teams. And I think we had obviously a good team, but we kind of ran into a team of destiny. And I feel like this is only almost 2 years in a row where we've run into a team of destiny. The same way that when a team played the Freshies, that team was not going to be denied. That undefeated team, it was going to happen. And so you can be very good, you can be on the borderline of great, but sometimes you run into teams that they will not be denied. And I think for 2 years in a row, we've sort of run into narratives that were pretty tough to overcome.
Yeah, I certainly think so too. I mean, and especially teams that were just better that day too. I mean,
and then you add on the idea that they were also just better those days.
So you mean we're not going to run the headline of, oh, what's going on with the South Carolina program? They lost 2 championship games in a row.
Yeah, I can't buy that at all. Yeah, like I mentioned on Twitter yesterday, this program's not in some sort of crisis mode, right? Like this isn't some sort of like, oh, we got to really look at the process top to bottom. The process works pretty damn well. If we're being honest with ourselves, right? You've made 6 straight Final Fours. You played in 3 straight national championship games.
And look what we lost last year and what we brought back this year. Oh my gosh.
And to be able to get to the spot too, honestly, with the injuries that you had for a majority of the year, and like a lot of lineup inconsistency for the first couple months. Yeah. And the growth that a lot of these players made, like think back on what Agat McKeer has been doing this past month and some change, right? She went from getting only 5 minutes in a close game at Kentucky in the last game of the regular season to scoring double figures in almost every single game in the NCAA tournament. And she only had 3 yesterday, but before that, she was on an absolute heater. You don't win the UConn game if it's not for Agat McKeer, right? You don't get to maybe even get the Final Four, beat TCU if it's not for Agat McKeer. And that took a lot of growth and development. Sometimes you just go into a team that's a little more developed and better that day. And I think if they played this game again in a week, I think it'll certainly be a closer game, but it was just one of those instances where you kind of ran into a buzzsaw, and also, and when it comes to coaching too, Corey Close, I think made one of the smartest, like little minute adjustments in that game too. If you go back and watch South Carolina and UConn, this is where we get into real nerd alert here, but it's just something I noticed. I just had to get it off my chest. Yeah. Major nerd alert. UConn was so good all year long at utilizing ball screens to get AZ Fudd to go to her right. Because, I mean, she's a right-handed scorer, right-handed dribbler. That's where she does a lot of her damage. Agat McKeer specifically was so good at icing ball screens, meaning you don't allow the ball handler to use the screen. You hop, you pretty much jump to the spot, beat them to the spot to where they can't use the screen as an angle to get to the side they want to drive on. Agat McKeer was so good at icing ball screens and forcing AZ Fudd to go to her left, where a couple times she turned the ball over going to her left or couldn't pull up into the jump shot that she wanted to do. Perfectly executed game plan. And they were going to do that against UCLA. They tried icing the ball screens against UCLA, and UCLA does what's called flipping the screen, where instead of, setting the screen with your chest to the sideline at the last second, you kind of you change the angle more so where your back is kind of to the baseline. And that way, the person icing the ball screen runs straight into their chest. It allows the ball handler to kind of snake through traffic a little bit and to get into their spots. I thought that was an incredibly smart, just like nerdy basketball adjustment that UCLA made in that game. Like they said, okay, you want to try to ice our ball screens? We're going to flip the angle of the screen here and then just get to the lane a different way. And I think you saw that in the result yesterday.
Yeah, and to that point, the last point on that is that they said on the broadcast that all year Corey Close intentionally only did one-day scouts on team to prepare for the tournament. So she would, no matter during the regular season, she would only do one-day scouts so that the team could get ready for the quick turnarounds that came in the tournament. So obviously they were preparing for that moment.
Yeah, and I think they executed that pretty good. So sometimes, even when you get beat, it's good to give credit where credit is due. But coming up next, it's the early game morning meeting. The topic this morning, sportsmanship. And one of the sport's all-time greats did not display the best sportsmanship over the weekend. We'll tell you who that is if you somehow missed it, coming up next.
Wow, what a play! The Game Network. Columbia, Charleston, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. Gamecock fans, get ready for something new this season. Charleston now has a new station for Carolina sports talk. Dial in to 96.9 The Game on HD3. Head to 96.9 FM and on an HD radio, punch into HD Channel 3. You'll unleash live Carolina coverage you can listen to all day long. New on HD3. It's 96.9 The Game HD3, South Carolina's newest sports station.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet studio. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown dealer. Stop by today or shop online 24/7 at herndonchevy.com.
Pressing here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. If your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. Cracked windshield, no problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with your insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work. It does not matter. Absolute Glass will come out to you and take care of the job for you. Now, if you're at home, you're looking to increase the value of your home, Absolute Glass can take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. I say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at absoluteglassinc.com. That's online at absoluteglassinc.com.
No accidents to report at this time. Traffic moving fairly well at this point. 69 for the high today, overnight low of 48. As we mentioned before, you're going to need a jacket most mornings this week as we aren't going to get out of the 40s to start the day. Tomorrow's high 72, 66 on Wednesday, and low 70s on Thursday. Right now, 55 on 107.5 The Game.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres on the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Coach, a kind of wild turn of events. Sarah Strong's jersey is split right down the middle. I saw you speaking to the refs about it. What message did you try to convey?
Right. There were 6 fouls called that quarter, all of them against us. And they've been beating out of our guys down there the entire game. And I'm not making excuses because we haven't been able to make a shot. But this is ridiculous. Their coach rants and raves on the sideline and calls the referee some names you don't want to hear. And now we get 6-0, and I got a kid with a ripped jersey, and they go, I didn't see it. Come on, man. This is for the national championship.
Oh, shout out to Tyler Head for FCC proofing Gino Ariema's being big mad. There's being little mad, then there's being big mad. And that counts as being big mad.
Big mad. The only problem, he was big mad and you still were in the game, sir. What are you doing? What are you doing?
It reminds me of that scene in the movie Old School where Will Ferrell's in the locker room and like he just got done being in a mascot suit that was on fire and he's yelling, everybody's got to keep your composure. Oh man, that's brutal. That's an example of bad sportsmanship. And that's not the first example we had. So we'll give you examples of bad sportsmanship played by Gino Ariema and good sportsmanship played by Dawn Staley after the game on Sunday for today's morning meeting.
Good morning. Repeat after me. Today will be an awesome day. Let's go.
Good morning, great day. Today will be an awesome day. Good morning, great day. Today will be an awesome day.
It certainly will be, and it was not a great day for Gino Ariema, because if you want to take a look at who was elected mayor of Bad Look City, Gino won the election in a landslide on Friday night. You heard that that in-game rant to Holly Rowe after, I believe that was the third quarter. Mm-hmm. After the third quarter, that is when he kind of got unglued. The game essentially ends, right? Shot clock and game clock were 1/10 of a second apart. So Carolina takes the shot clock violation. We're about to do the ceremonial final inbound, basically, of the game. And Gino goes over to Dawn. And normally coaches shake hands, say good game. And he lights her up for something that is incredibly silly. But here's what Gino had to say after the game when asked about him blowing up on Dawn Staley going back at him, and the entire altercation that happened once the clock hit 0.
What exactly happened in the end of that game in the last second with the handshake line with you and Dawn?
I said what I had to say and nothing.
Nothing?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, I don't have the best eyes in the world, but it certainly looked like something to me, right? Mm-hmm. And then, he wasn't willing to offer up why he got so bent out of shape, why he got big mad. It took a little bit of poking and prodding in that press conference to get a little more out of him. And here's what he had to say about why he was so upset.
I mean, for 41 years, I've been coaching and I've been, 25 Final Fours. And the protocol is before the game, you meet at half court. Anybody ever see that before? Two coaches meet at half court and they shake hands. Correct? You ever see it? They announce it on the loudspeaker. And I waited there for like 3 minutes. So it is what it is.
Well, I mean, coaches do shake hands before games, but they don't. I mean, I've been to a lot of these. I've never heard the PA announcer, say, and now the coaches are about to shake hands. Everybody watch. I've not heard that yet. I mean, if I have, if that's happened, I just miss it. But I don't. I listened for it yesterday. I didn't hear that part when they introduced the head coaches. But here's the funny thing about that, Preston Thorne. The NCAA tweeted a picture of them shaking hands before the game. The broadcast caught them shaking hands before the game. Mm-hmm. So Chapel Fowler with the state newspaper doing the Lord's work, got the
Big
mic.
J journalism here.
This is Big J journalism, and said there's a picture of you guys shaking hands. There's video of you guys shaking hands. And here's what Gino had to say to Chapel Fowler's question.
Chapel Fowler with the state. You talked about the handshake. There's pictures of you guys and videos, pregame handshake. Was your frustration that it took a while for her to get over there? Or was this a separate instance pregame versus the one that was on social media?
No, I think you missed the point of what I'm talking about. So I'd rather not go into it. Anybody that's been in the NCAA tournament, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know for missing the point. That's why the question is asked, my guy. Either way, the constant tripling, quadrupling down, because there was more. Oh, buddy, I was there. I can attest. There was more that happened in terms of the whole Sarah Strong ripped jersey thing. If you watch the game, Sarah Strong ripped her own jersey a la Hulk Hogan, and then gets to the bench. They have to completely rip it off and get a new one. He was just convinced it was a South Carolina player that did it. Sarah Strong sat next to him in that press conference, said she did it. And then Gino, when asked about Sarah's comment, said she didn't say that, or that's not what I heard. It was a bad display of bad sportsmanship and a gaslighting clinic that went on in that press conference room after the game.
Honestly, like you said, the doubling and tripling down is what makes it even worse. Like, obviously, you can get caught up in your emotions, which you shouldn't as a 72-year-old, 41-year-old veteran. You should be able to handle these things by now, Gino. But I give you that because you're a human being. But once you find out information that is counter to what you were saying, you could easily say, oh, man, that's my fault. I didn't see that.
Oh, he'll never. And the more I've read about him this weekend, it's like, pork chop city.
I know it's Monday, and I know Wednesdays when we give out our Denny Green Awards, but if you've done, if you're familiar with Gino Ariema's game, this is him running the play. Mm-hmm. This is the quintessential they are who we thought they were. And I guess if you win all the time, you're not accustomed to ever losing, right? But Dawn Staley wins a lot, and this was her initial reaction. This will be cut 17 when they got beat by UCLA yesterday.
Look, I'm always happy for people who worked hard, in this game, who are really quality people. I want good things to happen for them, and Corey is one of those people who really works at making our game better. Not just UCLA, but our entire game. She's always speaking out and uplifting our game in so many areas that it's hard to continue to do that while maintaining the job that you have to do every day, but she finds the time. So, although we didn't win, I can swallow it because we lost to a really good human being and a good team that represent women's basketball well.
And that's how you do it. That's all. It's those are the type of comments you got to do after you lose. You get butt handed to you. You show a little bit of humility and give credit where credit is due. So those are your examples of bad sportsmanship and good sportsmanship. That is the lesson for today's morning meeting. We'll take a quick break from the women's basketball over the weekend because coming up next, we're going to take a look at the men's national championship game tonight. They had a Final Four on Saturday. Is Dan Hurley really going to do this again? And Dusty May probably had the most creative coaching adjustment that I have ever seen in a Final Four basketball game. I'll tell you what it is coming up next.
107.5 The Game in Columbia, 96.9 The Game in Charleston, 100.3.
Yo, I've been trying to tell you all that all these big sporting events were on their way, and they are here. The big tournament is ending tonight, but there's still a huge golf tournament that's on the way. And the folks from Integrated Media can help you get set up to watch some of these things. Or it's never too early to get ready for football season because it's around the corner. You can get your outdoor setup ready. Samsung Terrace TVs, Sonos outdoor speakers, Wi-Fi that works indoors and outdoors so you can watch all your events at the same time. From home theater setup to adjusting your thermostat, monitoring your security system from your cell phone, Integrated Media is who you need to call. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or you can reach them online at integratedmediainc.com. That's online at integratedmediainc.com.
Do want to let you know about an accident on I-20 westbound there at I-26. There, the slowdown there. So again, I-20 westbound at I-26. 69 for the high today, overnight low 48, 72 for the high tomorrow, overnight low 45, both tomorrow night and into Wednesday. Wednesday's high 66. Right now, we're looking at 55 on 107.5 The Game.
The Early Game. With former Gamecocks Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen. On the Game Network, 107.5 Game app, and the Game TV radio on YouTube. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
Gives it off to Tessa, right wing three, bang! Three-pointer, Tessa Johnson.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bags.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
That's right. My last day here in Phoenix, hitting a plane here in a few hours to get back home. Big shout out to Forest Lake Travel and Griffin Pools and Spas for allowing me to get to hang out here, enjoy this wonderful city. If you've never been to Phoenix, highly recommend. It's been an absolute blast. Sad it's coming to an end, but a great experience. And I would be cool if the Final Four here was here every year. Awesome arena too. Big fan of the arena. Very impressive that Steve Nash built it with his bare hands.
Except next year you're in Columbus.
Oh, buddy.
Columbus, cool city.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine.
I would say just not as picturesque as Phoenix.
No. If it is as picturesque as Phoenix, that'd be the biggest upset of the basketball season. I'm sure Columbus is fine. I have no problem with Columbus. I had a great time in the state of Ohio, my first Final Four in Cleveland. But I have a good feeling with the way this program is. I have a great feeling I will be back at a Final Four next year in Columbus, Ohio.
Cleveland rocks, though. Cleveland rocks. Columbus.
Yes. What's Columbus's thing?
I'll get back to
Cleveland
you.
rocks. Yeah.
Buckeyes.
Yeah. Ohio State football.
Yeah.
They should just play the Final Four at the football stadium. Outdoor basketball for all the marbles.
I got nothing. But you know what? If South Carolina is there, it'll be cool.
It will be cool regardless. Yeah. Then Columbus is cool. I think that could be the new tagline. Columbus is cool.
We could become their new marketing team.
We could be. We gave them that for free.
Mm-hmm.
We gave them that one for free. Now, it'd be funny if they played that game in a football stadium outdoors. And it sounds funny in theory, but that's what the men do every single year is play their final 3 basketball games in large football stadiums. However, theirs are usually played in ones that have a roof over it to avoid any type of weather issue naturally. But over the weekend in Indianapolis, the Final Four occurred. UConn took down Illinois. And then Michigan took down Arizona in incredible fashion. I think the one thing I was really not expecting to see was just how badly Michigan was able to take it to a team in Arizona who I thought was one of the best teams in the sport all season long.
Yeah, and at that point, my brackets are totally done. It's over. My team crushes are gone. Just not a great basketball weekend for your boy.
Yeah, not the best.
I had Illinois and Arizona for the championship game. So,
Jen, you were so close.
Oh, so close.
You were so close, Jen. That would have been, I mean, anytime you get like half the Final Four field in your bracket and you get the national championship matchup correct, mightily impressive.
Yeah.
It is mightily impressive to do that. You were so close to pulling off a cool feat.
That would have been fun.
But the wild thing is, Danny Hurley did it again, though. I mean, defensively, they held one of the best offenses in college basketball in check for most of the game. And when it comes to a coaching display, Dusty May made one of the more creative adjustments I've ever seen any coach do in the sport of basketball. And I don't know if you noticed it. I didn't notice it in real time. I didn't notice it until I read like the comments, after the game of Dusty May talking about how when they were, doing the game prep with Arizona, that Arizona's bigs, specifically Montius Creve, 7'2", long arms, they were concerned that, they weren't going to be able to throw lobs over them. So much of what they do on offense is throwing lobs to their bigs. Ade Mara, who's 7'3" and a pterodactyl wingspan, pretty good at catching lobs. Merez Johnson, the other big, freakishly athletic, great screener. Like, they are really good at getting the ball around the basket and converting at the basket. And most of the time they get those by throwing lobs, right? They didn't think they'd be able to throw lobs over the length of Arizona centers. So what did they have Elliot Cadeau do? Throwing them the entry passes off the backboard. And if you go back and look at the first play, it looked like upon initial viewing that Cadeau's trying to shoot it and bank it in off the backboard, but he throws it off the backboard pretty hard, gets Krivas off his feet to try to block a shot. Mara catches it near the basket and then flushes it immediately, right, for an easy bucket. And that was the game plan. You look at Elliot Cadeau shooting in that game, and buddy, like the numbers, because they were counted as shots, were really, really bad. But then when you look at it and say, oh, their whole thing was just giving the bigs the ball off the backboard, it explains Elliot Cadeau going 2 for 10 from 2, because a lot of those were maybe more passes than they were shots.
Yeah, and I'm same as you. I didn't notice in real time. I read it through this, and they were talking. It was an interview with Mike Boynton, and he was saying how that was something that they saw in film through scouting, and he just came up with this idea, and everybody was like, "You sure, coach?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's try it." And just the ability of the coach to come up with the idea, the assistant coaches to teach the idea, and then the players to accept and execute the idea is what you would say is a connected team. And that's why we talked about this idea of tournament scouting. This happens in game very, very quickly. And you hear somebody, Dusty May, who's at the top of his game, come up with something that gets you 10 points, and those points win the game for you.
And like that, that's the wild thing too, is to be able to get a team of guys, of course, who've been playing, some of them playing a lot of college basketball. Damara's been playing college basketball for about 3 years. Merez Johnson's been playing for a while. Cadeau has played for a few years now. These are veteran players who have never been taught, right? Like Elliot Cadeau specifically, the one who's been tasked with this, has never been taught to make a pass off the backboard, right? The only time you see that's like in the NBA All-Star game when, Tracy McGrady or Kobe Bryant's throwing off the backboard to themselves for a dunk or whatever. That's not something you're normally taught to do. It's a radical idea, but to come up with it for one, and then be able to bring that up to your assistant coaches, and then be like, that does sound crazy, but it just might work. And then be able to convince your players to go out there and execute that is a very good reflection of the connectivity of that basketball team. Like, it takes a high level of buy-in to be like, hey, I know this is how you normally play basketball. I would need you to do that completely different, because if we don't, we're not going to be able to get the ball into our bigs.
Real quick, I have to give Coach Mike Boynton a little bit of a plug here. This is Dusty May talking about him. He says, of Mike, he's just as good as I am. He's just as prepared. He's been invaluable for me. And the best part for me is that he covers my blind spots before they're blind. He's a forward thinker. And so obviously if you're a Gamecock and you have a vested interest in any Gamecock alum, Mike is going to be out there attempting to win a national championship tonight.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And after Mike Boynton's stint in Oklahoma State, kind of rediscovering himself a little bit as a coach, doing a hell of a job in Michigan, because that team is built to win it. Can they take care of business tonight? I think they can. I think they can. I think they will. But when you're playing against a team that just has true championship DNA and that finds ways to get back to this point, it's hard to feel confident betting against them.
And I want to say this very clearly, and maybe we'll save this for tomorrow if they win. I do not like Dan Hurley. However, I like that Dan Hurley I like that he exists. He's not my guy. He's not my guy, but I like the fact that we have that he is him and he's able to be him. He's not for me, but I can understand if somebody would like him.
Yeah, he's one of those, not for everybody, but he's certainly a character that makes college basketball as a sport a little bit more intriguing. Now, coming up next, we touched on it a little bit on Friday, but we wanted to carve out a whole segment. So before we get back to the reaction from the basketball over the weekend, a former Gamecock has retired from the NFL, and I think he's Canton bound, and we'll talk about him coming up next.
Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres on the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
So late last week, it was announced Stephon Gilmore hanging it up, officially retiring. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying this because he is one of my favorite defensive backs to ever play the game. One of my favorite Gamecocks. I'd say second favorite Gamecock football player of all time behind Sidney Rice. But Stephon Gilmore, I think, is Canton bound. And we already had our first with Sterling Sharp. I think Stephon Gilmore, feel pretty confidently about this, is going to be the next one enshrined. And we got to touch on it a little bit on Friday. It was a really busy show, obviously preparing for the Final Four, but wanted to carve out a little bit of time here in the last segment of hour number 2 to reflect on what is, to me, a Hall of Fame NFL career from one of South Carolina's greats.
And again, I think what makes Steph so special is that he's ours. Not only that he went to school in South Carolina, but he's a South Carolina native, and we've seen the trajectory of his career the whole time. And yeah, when you lay out his career numbers, whether it's Defensive Player of the Year, being All Pro, not Pro Bowl, even though he did that also, but being All Pro several times, it kind of lays out. And I think this goes to my what is becoming my criteria for going into the Hall of Fame. And the thing is this: at any point, were you the best in your career? And yes, there was like a 3-year stretch where Stephon Gilmore was the best defensive back in the game. And I think that's, to me, regardless of stats on one side or the other, I think that to me is something that gives you a legit argument for Canton, is because at one point in all of football, you were the best at a position.
And honestly, in terms of players that had real MVP chances or cases, I think 2019 Stephon Gilmore had a legitimate MVP case. And I remember making it at the time, right? Like working in this business and making the case at the time that Stephon Gilmore was one of the most valuable players in football. Now, that was a Patrick Mahomes go crazy year, so I get it. Like a quarterback award, like rightfully so, Patrick Mahomes MVP, 2 thumbs up, whatever. But Stephon Gilmore had a legitimate case that he could have made for MVP, because that Patriots team at 12-4 was not the most dynastic looking offense, right? Like if you look at what that team did offensively, it wasn't the best ensemble of players, right? And still top 10 scoring offense, but that wasn't what made them successful. That defense held teams to 14 points a game that year. And Stephon Gilmore led the league in interceptions that year with 6, had 20 pass deflections for the second year in a row, because he did it in 2018 too. He was at the top of his game then, and I think Stephon Gilmore shut down a side of the field so frequently that it allowed the rest of that defense to look like a quintessential New England Patriots defense. To me, that year alone, that 2-year stretch in 18 and 19 with the New England Patriots, he was legitimately the best defensive back in the sport, made a huge difference. And then he continued to do it throughout his career. Maybe if he wasn't considered the best, he's still playing at an acceptable Pro Bowl level in what I would say are earned Pro Bowl spots, right? You see Pro Bowlers all the time that are just there because injury or a player decides not to play in the Pro Bowl. So that's how you get guys like Tyler Huntley that end up getting that on the resume. But those were legit earned 5 Pro Bowls along with his 2 All-Pro seasons in which he was the best corner in the sport and was voted on in the AP as the Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 specifically.
Yeah, and then when you bring it closer to home, you cannot overestimate how important it was for him to sign with South Carolina. He did not have to. There were plenty of other schools that he could have signed with. He signs at South Carolina, and things start going up. His class, 2009, Steph, Alshon, DJ Swearinger, and Devontae Holloman. That class right there, things start taking off after that. And you have to say, once he signs, it makes it okay for this kid, this young struggling buck at South Point named Jadeveon Clowney to come along. And another guy across the road up in the upstate named Marcus Lattimore. They all decide, oh, I can go there. I can be great at South Carolina, in South Carolina. It probably is difficult to overestimate how important Steph was to the whole golden years that we had during Spurrier's time.
Yeah, I mean, a foundational piece. And like the thing about him in college too that I loved was just how versatile he was. like being blitzed off the edge, yeah, he can get to the quarterback and make a quarterback feel some pain, right? He's picking off passes. He could be a weapon on offense if you wanted to use him, because your story about coaching against him in high school is still one of my favorites.
We did not tackle him. Literally, he was playing quarterback for the South Point Stallions and the Blythewood Bengals. Shout out to all my guys that played that game. But we literally did not tackle him. Every play either ended with Stephon scoring a touchdown or Stephon deciding to run out of bounds.
Oh, those are my favorite stories, is hearing about those dudes in high school, guys who are that good, and just how they were so utterly dominant that they're going to do what they do, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. Oh, man, great stuff. Stephon Gilmore, hopefully to see him in Canton. Hour number 3 of the early is coming up next. We'll revisit the 79-51 loss in the national championship game to UCLA. Coming up next.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet studio. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown dealer. Stop by today or shop online 24/7 at herndonchevy.com.
Are you doing some updates in your house this spring? Maybe needing some countertops or vanities, showers, fireplaces, custom hardscapes, like wanting to build an outdoor kitchen? I'm telling you what, Carolina Stone Craftsman in Chapin is the place to go. They have countertops and stone to complete your summer space. They also can help you with indoor projects as well. They've been serving the Columbia area for over 2 decades, and it means they know the product, they know the market, and they know their customers. Full fabrication services where they cut, shape, and installed. When we needed some countertops for a couple of bathrooms that we redid, every step of the process was absolutely great. So I'm telling you, if you have projects coming up in your home, reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman, 803-408-3456, and be sure to tell them Jen Jensen sent you. Carolina Stone Craftsman, beyond Columbia in Chapin, and definitely beyond your expectations. Check them out online, carolinastonecraftsman.com.
Sponsored by Credit Karma.
Want to make the most of your tax refund? File with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They help you get your biggest refund, and then we help you do more with it with a personalized plan designed to help you hit your money goals. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Plus tax tags entitled with approved credit. Call 888-320-6359 for details. At JT's Jeep Ram, the savings are already built in. You can see for yourself online the deep discounts we offer on new Wranglers, Grand Cherokees, Rams, and more. No guessing or games, just real savings. Clearly displayed on our website. And if you've got a trade, JT is offering up to 25% more for it. JT's Jeep Ram, 378 Lexington or Greystone Boulevard. JT'sJeep.com or JT'sRam.com. Declaration of Deal Sales Event.
Start your spring cleaning with Zero-Res. Get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for $109 plus a free hallway. No soap, no residue, no harsh chemicals, just a deeper clean that lasts. Plus, now you can also take $100 off air duct cleaning and breathe cleaner air. Visit ZeroResColumbia.com.
At Average Amy's Coffee Corner, our coffee has caffeine, our muffins are cooked, and our services, well, we're here. Come on by for an average cup of joe.
Average doesn't build great businesses. Cumulus Digital does, outperforming industry benchmarks by more than 25%. We deliver smarter digital marketing to over 4,000 local businesses every month and drive real, measurable growth. You're not average. Your marketing results shouldn't be either. Visit cumulusdigital.com to start outperforming today.
Yo, this is Ray and Nathan with Pope Davis Tire Automotive.
Dad, why do the other tire places in town not like us?
They are just jelly about our lit prices.
Like the top 17-inch size for your Mom-Mobile, $500 for a set of 4 out the door.
Or the top 20-inch truck size for $720 total, no cap.
You can even buy tires online at PopeDavisTire.com.
Why is my line just 6'7"?
6'7".
I don't get it.
PopeDavisTire.com.
It's the Game Network Traffic Report from the Schroeder's Towing Traffic Center. Broken down and need a tow or even free signage for your lot? Dial pound 250 and use keyword tow truck today.
Earlier accidents have been cleared, so nothing to speak of in that respect. And your forecast looking pretty decent. 69 for the high today, 72 tomorrow, 66 on Wednesday. The overnight low is going to be in the mid 40s, so it certainly is going to be jacket weather when you're first heading out in the morning. And just like right now, it's starting out at 52 on 107.5 The Game.
For the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game, WNKT Eastover, Columbia, a Cumulus media station. Back to sports, the early game with former Gamecock Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen on the Game Network, 107.5 Game app, and the Game TV radio on YouTube. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
For the 6th year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks are dancing to the Final Four.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bag.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools at Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
That's right. Final hour of today's show, the early game, third and long hour starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell, live from Phoenix, Arizona, for the last time, coming off the heels of the NCAA Tournament's national championship game and the Final Four from Friday. He's Preston Thorne. He's in Studio 803, and so is Jen Jensen. I'm looking forward to coming back tomorrow, but we got a lot to get into here in this final hour. We'll revisit the 79-51 loss here. Thorns, Buds, and Roses after this. And this week for the early game, third and long hour goes deep. We're going to talk about falling one game short, right? Part one today will be the sting. How do teams respond to the initial sting of losing a national championship game after accomplishing all your goals until the last game? We'll get into that at 8:30. But first, Preston Thorne, we shall talk about this game. That's why, I was paid to come here to Phoenix, Arizona. Shout out to Griffin Pools and Spas and Forest Lake Travel for allowing me to be here to do that here over the weekend. But 79-51, a game where South Carolina did not lead the entire time, a game that saw them down 21-10 at the end of the first quarter, and then in the third quarter have one last kill shot and outscoring the Gamecocks 25-9 in that 10-minute stretch to ultimately make this thing a completely non-competitive fourth quarter.
So if we was to go through this game, let's go through a couple of things. Let's start off with one number that you think summarizes this game.
All right, I'll give you a ratio. How about that?
Okay.
And that ratio would be 21-17. And then maybe two ratios I think is probably better of doing it. 21-17 and 25-12. The 21-17 is the offensive rebound numbers. UCLA had 21 offensive rebounds. South Carolina had 17. Seems competitive, right? South Carolina offensive rebounded pretty well for the most part. But when you look at offensive rebound percentage, it wasn't anywhere near the percentage of UCLA, because when South Carolina shoots 29% from the field, that's a lot of missed shots, right? That's 40-plus missed shots that they had in this game. They grabbed 17 of those rebounds. That's under 50%. UCLA only missed 39 shots during the game, but they grabbed 21 offensive rebounds. That's an offensive rebound percentage over 50%. So while that specific ratio may be a little misleading, you can still look at 21 offensive rebounds to 17, and it may look really close. But that 25-12 ratio was second chance points. UCLA converted those 21 offensive rebounds to 25 points. South Carolina only converted their 17 to 12. And I think that paints the picture of A, how UCLA dominated the glass in the game, and B, how much more efficient they were when they actually got the ball inside the paint. And usually offensive rebounds can sometimes be higher percentage looks because the defense is scrambled. Usually you're in a pretty advantageous situation when you do get the offensive rebound. The ability to just convert on the opportunities that you were able to create second chance, I think made a huge difference in the game. And that is a small microcosm of what went down yesterday, but had very large consequences.
I will add a ratio of my own, and that'll be 23-9, and that was the assist numbers. 23 assists for UCLA, 9 assists for South Carolina, and I think that indicated that. And Dawn said it in her post game. She just felt like they were much more connected than we were, and I think that hints to the offensive innovations that they were doing, the systems that they were running, that game plan that they were executing. It felt as if they were running a plan. And we kind of got bogged down in the mud when we were trying to figure out what to do on offense. And so I think that number 23-9 is something that really caught my attention.
One thing I love about sports in general, sometimes you can tell a story just through numbers, right? To add to another ratio, or not ratio, a shooting percentage, right? That I think was a big reflection on how this game was played was 9 for 21. And that is what South Carolina was in the paint at the rim. And this is a South Carolina team that all year long, we've been telling you what they've been shooting at the rim after each game, because for the most part, they were a team that was making 65 to 70% of their shots at the rim, one of the higher ends, in women's college basketball. But the one thing that made it their superpower wasn't usually a conversion rate that was acceptable, but it was the fact that they would get to the rim 35 or 40 times in a game. Very seldomly this year, if ever. I remember reading a stat on where they were at the rim where they had fewer than 30 attempts. UCLA only allowed them to have 21 attempts at the rim, and only 9 made shots. So even when South Carolina got the ball near the basket, the post presence of a Lauren Betts or an Angela Dugalich was usually way too much when it came to being easy to score on. Like, they were not, like, their length bothered them in the paint so much that every shot they got in the paint felt contested. There was not one bucket where I sat back in my chair and said, you know what, that looked really easy. It was that way the entire game. And I think outside of just the percentage of 9 for 21, that's one part of it, of how many you end up missing. But I think that 21 number of the only, times you're able to actually get shots at the rim compared to UCLA's 27 tells a bigger story, because it's one thing to completely alter somebody's shot. It's another thing to completely discourage them from taking those. And I thought UCLA did that. And if it came down to having a game plan to beat South Carolina, taking away their superpower is probably priority number one. And many teams can go into a game thinking they can do that and trying to do that. UCLA was the only one good enough to succeed at actually doing that.
Yeah, I would love an analytic on the shots that South Carolina, or the shots that teams did not take against UCLA, because there were several times where we got into the paint and thought better of it because of Lauren Betts' presence, just being there, making her presence known. It made people be like, I don't know if I want to do that, and that is a huge defensive tool to make people think twice, or to make you hesitate, or make you pump fake, or do any of those things. That's something different. And that led me to my overarching thought from the first hour was, remember Camila Cardozo? Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that fun?
Yeah. Talk about efficiency. I mean,
that was fun, man.
Give her all the post, she scores.
Yeah, when I was just watching Lauren Betts just be a presence in the middle, it was just like, oh yeah, I forgot that's what it was like when we had a 6'7" big that dominated the paint. That was really fun. And they don't come around often. That's why when you do have one who's skilled, and I would even say Lauren Betts is probably more skilled than Carmilla, just footwork and agility wise and offensively, even though they're both great. When you have somebody that can play like that, that is a difficult ask for anybody.
Yeah, it is. It's a hard guard. And if you let's look at maybe like a scouting report of Lauren Betts, she gets the ball in the post and she doesn't get rushed. It may take her a while to get into her, like, the move and be able to get into that jump hook or whatever it is that she ends up scoring. She might pound the air out of the ball for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is methodical, but it's not rushed. And I think that's one thing about her game that has grown over the course of the last few years. It's taken time and development, right? She couldn't get on the floor at Stanford, goes to UCLA, is there for a few years, and ends up growing into a really good basketball player. And you saw it, yesterday, and she didn't have to take a ton of shots too. I mean, if you look at just the shot totals, she took the 4th most shots in that lineup, the 4th most, and maybe had the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because everything revolves around her. The whole offensive game plan revolves around her, whether that's getting her the ball, whether that's her posting, cutting, everything revolves around. And that's when I knew we were in trouble, Elijah, because everything revolves around her. She went out the game choking on air. We still haven't figured out what was going on. And maybe you I don't know if you saw this, but when she went out the game, were you aware of why she was out the game early in the first quarter?
I thought it might have been an injury, but from where I was sitting, I was kind of like in the corner about halfway up through the arena. I didn't get a good view of it, but I definitely saw it on Twitter. Right?
Yeah.
I had the tab pulled up, and I'm keeping up with what people are saying.
So when they're doing the broadcast, they're kind of like she's having trouble breathing, or we're not necessarily sure. My first thought was like, is she having some sort of panic-ish?
I thought maybe she got hit in the throat.
That could have been a possibility.
Kind of pointing and said, "My throat, my throat."
That could have been a possibility, and that's when I sort of felt we was in trouble, because she was out of the game for an extended period of time, and they increased the lead while she was out the game.
Yeah,
that was not a good sign.
No, that's never a good sign. Whenever the other team's best player goes out and they're still able to build on a lead, and that's what makes UCLA a great team too. I know we gave them their flowers in the last hour too, but you look at like the dominance level in that game and how they were able to just take away what South Carolina did best. And whenever Lauren Betts did have things cooking and she was able to score, you figured out you could not guard her one-on-one. And that's usually step one, right? See if you can guard the big one-on-one. If not, then you go into secondary, strategies like fronting the post or double teaming or anything like that, double teaming on the catch or double teaming on the dribble. There's so many ways to play against a dominant back to the basket, forward that you can try throughout the course of a game. And I think South Carolina did. You went from, playing her straight up on the block, and she scored a couple times. They went to trying to front her on the post. But UCLA, in terms of that assist number you alluded to, Preston, a lot of those were entry passes over the top, right? Where South Carolina tried to front the post, still didn't work. They were still to get the pass over the top. Lauren Betts or whoever was still able to end up scoring. And again, another microcosm of this game is going through different things, different strategies, and nothing working. You saw them change defenses in the game. You saw Dawn break out the zone. You saw them break out a full court zone, right, to try to speed UCLA up a little bit. Worked a little bit, but then
it did work. It did work. It did work temporarily, but at the same time, I think we got 2 stops in a row and did not get 2 buckets.
And see, when you get 2 stops in a row there, you got to be able to score to then put more pressure on them, right? At that point in the game, it's still within a point where you can cut it down to maybe like 12 or 10 at the end of the third quarter. And then by the time you get to the first media timeout, if you cut it to 6, I thought you were going to get back in it. I thought that was kind of like the roadmap, because I think they were trailing by 18 at one point, where I was starting to try to map it out. Like, what would it be like? Because you're early on in the third quarter, the lead ballooned to like 18. I'm like, well, if you get it down to 10 or 12 at the end of the quarter, you can go to the under 5 and be able to be down 6. You're still in good shape, but you got to be able to counteract the turnovers that you're able to get with points, or else none of that was going to matter. And to UCLA's credit, they didn't allow any of that to ultimately matter.
Yeah, and I guess with my limited basketball knowledge, I do understand that in order for the press to work, you have to score points, because you can't press them when they're not taking the ball out, right? So when you don't get those buckets, you don't allow yourself to set up the press. They are able to move down court, and so it worked temporarily. And I was like, okay, this is a glimpse. This is something that might work, but we could never get the buckets to even get anything going. And to their credit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those games, so you can look at it a multitude of ways. I know locally, a lot of the focus is on what South Carolina didn't do, and it's totally fair, right? Second year in a row, you didn't break 60 total points in a national championship game, and you lose by double figures in a big way. Like, I understand that frustration, but I do genuinely believe that UCLA is a better team, and they took it to you. Like they went out there and they earned that national championship. And I don't think that could be understated at all. So when it comes to how I'm going to remember that national championship game, it's more of how well UCLA played and executed a game plan and just did things better. You know, when I was talking to Maddie McDaniel after the game, I asked, the question of like, is it something that maybe UCLA offensively or defensively did something that you might not have been prepared for, or was it more just a matter of execution? She said it was just a matter of execution. And I think you watch the game too. I think you could ultimately end up coming to the same conclusion. I know our man Preston Thorne came to a lot of conclusions over the weekend, and it's time to give out some accolades because Thorns, Buds, and Roses is coming up next here in the early game.
All my sports. The Game Network. 107.5 The Game in Columbia. 96.9 The Game in Charleston. 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And 100.5 The Game in Florence.
We have a new way for you to call the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Just dial pound 250, and when prompted, punch in the keywords, the game. And that's it. Again, pound 250 with the keywords, the game. Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet studio. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown dealer. Stop by today or shop online 24/7 at herndonchevy.com.
All right, guys, you're working out, not getting the results that you used to. You're not feeling like yourself. Maybe you have a little bit of brain fog. Well, there's a reason why you're feeling like that, and it might be low testosterone. But you don't just have to live with it. You can reclaim your drive, your energy, and your focus at the men's clinic with Dr. Dan Boltnight, who's a respected local physician. And he'll get to the bottom of it. He, a person, a human being that you can talk to, that you can ask questions, not a machine, not a portal. It's somebody that can take care of you. And they'll take care of you at the men's clinic, where you'll find a non-threatening, comfortable environment, and your concerns will be welcome. And the best part about it, you can get your initial consultation with Dr. Dan Boltnight absolutely free. So come in, get your T levels checked so you have nothing to lose. Don't wait. Call him at 803-875-MENS. That's 803-875-MENS, or you can visit him online at mensclinicsc.com.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2?
An accident reported Broad River Road near Beatty Road. Also, things a little bit slow. I-26 eastbound approaching I-20. That forecast, it's not too bad for, early April. 69 will be our high today, 72 tomorrow, 66 on Wednesday. But as I mentioned before, the overnight temperatures will be in the 40s this week. So you are going to want to probably have a jacket first thing in the morning. But right now we start off at 52. 107.5 The Game.
Is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bags.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5, the Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Trust me, I can attest to it being a busy sports weekend. Shout out to Griffin Pools and Spas and Forest Lake Travel for allowing me to be in Phoenix over the weekend here at the Women's Final Four and at the National Championship game yesterday. And I can confirm a lot of stuff went down. A lot of accolades need to be given out in the entire world of sports. And that's what our man Preston Thorne does every single Monday with Thorns, Buds, and Roses.
It's time for Thorns, Buds, and Roses with Preston Thorne on the early game. 107.5 The Game.
All right, Elijah. I think it was pretty clearly obvious what the thorn is this week.
I wonder what that could be or who that could be.
I know you don't want to assume and you don't want to jump the gun, but yes, it's Gino. Yes.
Stunned.
I was coming up with another name for a thorn.
Exactly. It is Gino.
And I think I know what that word might be.
Yeah.
Family show.
Family show. But here's the issue, man. Specifically, I'll give you a pass for anything that happens in the game because I'll give you intensity, I'll give you emotions, I'll give you a pass for anything that happens in the game. I don't like it. I think once you're a 41-year-old coaching vet, you're 72 years old. What's the point of being old if you haven't learned from any of your experiences? But that's another case. I'll give you that. But after the game, doubling down, tripling down, making the reporters feel like they're the ones who are crazy for telling you, oh, no, Sarah Strong ripped her own jersey. Oh, no, you did actually shake hands. And you just dismissing them and telling them that they're wrong. What are you doing? That was the biggest part for me. Yes, the on-court stuff was bad. Yes, it was absolutely ridiculous. And if I was a fan of UConn, I would question where Gino's head was throughout the game because apparently he was bothered by that the whole game. So how much was he even coaching if all he could think about was this pregame handshake? That had to have been rattling around in his brain for the whole time. So he was off his game. That leads me to my buds because I was starting to soften on Gino and Elijah. You correctly said, You said it last week. And I was like, I don't know, man. He started, he's softening up on a little, nip it in the bud. That's over. That's done. It's over. Gino is who we thought he was. We'll be getting back to that later on in the week because, it is pretty clear that when pushed into a corner or just simply losing, he reverts back to his old ways. It's easy to be graceful when you're on top, when you're winning, but we saw a different side. We saw the true side of Gino, I think, of who he was. Because yeah. Because after 72 years, if you ain't got it, I think this is what it is.
You develop these habits.
Old dogs can learn new tricks, but I don't know. Humility might not be one of them for Gino. Leads me to the last one. 25 roses, obviously for Raven Johnson. Consummate pro, consummate leader, 2 national championships, 5 Final Fours, 3 SEC tournaments, 5 regular season championships, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, SEC All Defensive Team. Pretty much any accolade that you want. She has a historic, decorated career. I'm very interested to see what her future holds. But here at the University of South Carolina, she is one of the most decorated and one of the greatest players to wear that uniform, and that says a lot because there have been a lot of great players. So, shout out to Raven. 25 roses for Raven. Elijah, those are our thorns, buds, and roses for the weekend.
In terms of the thorn too of Gino Auriemma, the one thing I can't get over, and it's kind of just stuck with me all weekend, it's not that he got so bent out of shape over a perceived handshake slight, because she did shake his hand.
Mm-hmm.
There are photos of the handshake. I saw the handshake. There are videos of it. I did see where, he when they announced the coaches, he was standing there waiting. But you know what Dawn was doing? Being in the huddle with her team.
Coaching,
right? Mm-hmm. Coaching. Giving final instruction for the biggest game of the season. And he got bent out of shape, not because she just didn't shake his hand, over how she shook his hand or the fact that he had to wait while she was coaching. Sorry, buddy. That takes a little more precedent. Me talking to my team takes a little more precedent than me being like, oh, they said our names. I got to go shake Gino's hand right now. No, she's pretty locked in. And just anybody who had any other coach with any type of consideration, we're cool with that. And they already shook hands and embraced before the game. You just didn't like how she did it. Out of all of the petty things that you could possibly be mad at and stew over for an entire game, that's the dumbest one. Arguably the dumbest one.
And, you just think that's not really what it was. He just
had to find something.
Without admitting, well, I'm really hurt because our team just got our butt kicked. That's the only thing he could come up with that maybe sounded plausible. I don't know.
Or maybe he just didn't feel confident enough in saying, I just don't like her, which is cool.
Yeah.
And you could say that because, also, you, in your statement, very clearly did not mention Dawn Staley. You mentioned the players and the staff, did not mention Coach Staley by name. I don't know if that's nitpicking or what, but I think it was fairly intentional. The other thing, Elijah, he did? Your boy snitched too. He's like, what if I call the referee's names? You can't believe what she's saying.
Because he's never done that.
Right, because Gino's obviously known as being a guy who is very much mellow, low-key on the sideline, right? Mm-hmm. Get out of here. That might have been the most egregious part. Like, he violated basketball code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In that interview, she's talking to officials like this. And then after the game, he's like, well, I just don't want there to be a double standard. Like, get out of here, dude.
Okay.
Also, just like what kind of complaint is it that, like, if somebody else is doing something, the best thing that you can do is not do it. If you really think you have some type of like moral high ground there, the best thing you can do is just not do it, right? If you think that's that big of a deal, be the example, right? Don't complain that, oh, I don't get to berate people. I don't get to do this.
Because is that really what you want to do?
That's so dumb.
But it's what he does. It's what he does.
Correct.
It's his thing. I mean, and again, man,
sent him a crying towel.
I don't know whether he was just searching for something, but it's like, come on, man, you're complaining about. Let the referees complain. They can handle that.
Yeah.
If they felt like it's too much, they can take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. They have power at their disposal.
Well,
one whistle and one T sign, that's all they'd have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly they didn't think it crossed that threshold.
And the thing is, the whole thing with the press conference or the statement that he made the next day that he did not write, let's just say post game, he should have been more calm. Like, he reacted poorly at the end of the game. But by the time he got to that press conference, his head should have been clear enough to not be stupid, and he still was.
And that's like I said, that's the biggest point.
Yeah.
I'll give you a pass for anything that happens in game. You probably should be more in control, but whatever.
Yep.
After the game, and here's the part that I saw a lot of folks mention, and I think this is really worth mentioning, is that he did a disservice to his own players because he definitely could not have been there. And I have to bring my guy up here, Elijah. You saw what class was with Vic Schaefer at the end of his game, where his team was obviously disappointed, but he took time to console and lead his players even in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Not that guy. He walks off the court I don't think he had much to offer his players because he's so caught up in his own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A little bit of a narcissism angle to that on Gino. Bad Look City, newly elected mayor, Gino Auriemma, ran for re-election and won in a landslide. But coming up next, it's time for the third and long hour to go deep, talking about falling one game short. It has to happen to one team every year. Part one, the initial sting. With another title game loss for South Carolina, we'll go ahead and break down the teams that do make it so far, but just fall one game short. We'll talk about the sting of losing that game coming up next here in the early game.
Hey, it's Jen for CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. You know, the demolition we had to do, we had to totally redo the kitchen. That wasn't a planned thing. That was an act of nature kind of a thing. And it was not a fun time, but they sure made it a whole bunch better over at CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. Pulled everything together, got the photorealistic rendering, showed the finished kitchen before it was even finished, which made it so much better on so many levels. But you don't have to totally redo a kitchen to utilize their services. If you want to just update a bathroom like we did, just need a cabinet for a bathroom, you can give them a call. You want to update your closet, maybe make it a little bit more functional, maybe get your pantry a little more organized. They can help you with that too. So many options to utilize their services. CHWcabinetry.com is the way to go. Call them 803-520-6837. Tell them Jen sent you. Their CHW Cabinetry, passion from inspiration to installation.
Broken down and need a tow, or even free signage for your lot? Dial pound 250 and use keyword tow truck today.
Fairfield Road at I-20. Do have a report of an accident there. No others to speak of. And the forecast for today, 69 is going to be the high, 72 tomorrow, 66 on Wednesday, and warms up a little bit for the weekend. By Friday, we hit 77 and should be in the 80s for the weekend. So things are looking good, just a little bit cooler the early part of the week, and those overnight lows will be in the 40s. So keep that in mind heading out each day. 53 currently on 107.5 The Game.
The early game with former Gamecock Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen on the Game Network, 107.5 Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube. Road tripping with the Gamecocks through March.
For the 6th year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks are dancing to the Final Four.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bag.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Before the early game, third and long hour goes deep, talking about falling one game short and the initial sting of falling one game short. We'll go out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, 803-404-6100, where Jeff is on the phone. Good morning, Jeff. Welcome to the early game.
Good morning. How are y'all today?
Marvelous. You doing all right?
Doing just fine. I just wanted to weigh in a little bit. This whole weekend, the social media and everything with the situation that happened with South Carolina and Connecticut and the coach. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about it. Brought back an old memory I'll get to just a second. But real quickly, a lot of people were saying it was a racial thing, this, that, and the other. I'm not so sure that it was. I just think it was a coach flipping out and getting to a point that he flipped out. I've seen it. I'm old enough to remember Woody Hayes doing the same thing back in the early 80s when they were playing Clemson, and he flipped out. I don't know if y'all are too young to remember that. You may have seen clips of it, but guy intercepts a pass, and he's over there hitting the Clemson player with his fist in the helmet. Yeah. I think that's kind of what happened to Gino. He kind of got to a point that he just flipped out. I think if it was racial, that ugliness would have raised its head. He's had the opportunity for that to happen if that was the way he was many times prior to that. But anyway, real quickly, I just think it was a coach that just flipped out. You see it. There's a whole lot of coaches that flip out, not making it light on Gino. He screwed up 90 miles an hour. But, as well as I do, if you've played ball or anything, get back in that clubhouse sometimes after the game, and you'll see some real flipping out there too. Mm-hmm. But Gino was dead wrong and everything, and I hope that goes away. Have a good day, guys.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call, Jeff. What I think it is too, it's a man who has not done a lot of losing in the last 3 decades. It took him a little bit to build that UConn machine to what it was. And once he got that first title, he seemingly rarely ever lost. Right. And I think that's a man who has done so much winning in the midst of that. He forgot the humility that is required to handle losing. And when you're not accustomed to doing it and you're already building a career long of bad habits losing, because it's not his first time, being a sore loser, right? That has happened before, being grumpy and doing, making like remarks and passive aggressive jabs, always kind of been his thing. And when that type of habit builds, it will culminate in you not being able to handle your emotions. And another one of the rare instances in which you do lose a game that you really, really want.
My only comment on that would be that was Woody Hayes' last game.
Yeah, when you punch the opposing teams, a player from the opposing team, I think that's probably the end.
Yeah, so if we're making the comparisons to that being a Woody Hayes-like incident, just remember that was Woody Hayes' last game that he ever coached. Woody Hayes was 65, Gino Auriemma 72. Again, you do not get to be – the point of getting old is to be wizened and experienced. You don't get to be old and still make young, dumb mistakes. So
Yeah, he doesn't need to be a grumpy old man.
hope he can figure that out.
Yeah. And that's going to be on him to figure out. It's time for that old dog to learn new tricks, and that new trick is losing with a little bit of humility, right? But we'll see. I know he's already said he's going to be back next year, so he'll have a chance maybe to redeem himself in that regard. But for the early game, third and long hour goes deep, falling one game short. Part one, the sting. Now, with another title game loss, I figured it's appropriate to take a look at great teams that just fall one game short of the ultimate goal. What is that initial sting like, and what mindset are the players in the immediate aftermath? And I guess one of the things too we could also tackle in this is, what are some of the common perceptions of those teams, and how do we get our idea of these great teams so misconstrued after a loss in a title game despite having the great seasons required to get there?
Yeah, so again, when we talked about, we brought up a lot of these dynasties. When we think about them with the benefit of history and the hindsight, we think that all of these dynasties just went straight through and they won every time that they were in the championship, and there's only one, and that's going to be the Jordan era. And I think that's how people have kind of gotten the idea of what a dynasty is, because even the Showtime Lakers, the Celtics, like all of these teams lost championships. That is a part of ultimately being a winner, because you have to be in the championships to be there. But there is a significant grieving process that you have to go through because you were so close. And I think that is the thing where, they probably won't do much sleeping. You'll probably do a whole lot of playing the game over in your mind. That's going to go along for a while, and you do have to live with the idea that you got that close. And more so than anything, I think for these women, you got that close and you didn't play your best game. And that's probably the thing that's going to haunt them for a while.
And it's the last thing you remember too. I think that's the unfortunate part, is that the memory of the team gets a little bit contorted because you just remember what you saw last, right? And you remember less of what occurred in the build up to get to that point. And I think one of the greatest examples in sports of this, two great examples in pro sports that come to mind. The 18-0 Patriots, right? When they got to the Super Bowl in 2007 and lost to a New York Giants team that played the best defensive game of their lives. David Tyree made a play for his life that he would never make again, right? A 1 in a million type catch that he made against Rodney Harrison on the helmet catch. And what do we remember that team? Not that they were the most dominant professional football team I've ever watched in my life, and it's not even close. What we remember is that last game and the upset that occurred in that Super Bowl. And sometimes I think that Patriots team doesn't get the credit it's due because of it. I'm not even lying here. This is on the flight from when I'm waiting for my connection in St. Louis to hop on a plane to go from St. Louis to here to Phoenix. They have one of the TVs in the airport, and it's like an NFL loop, kind of like what we have in our studio. And they were doing a top 10 best offenses of all time, and they got to number 3, and it said the 2007 Patriots. And I'm like, wait, what? That without a doubt was maybe the best offense I've ever seen in my life. That's one of the best teams I've ever seen in my life. And of course they don't have the sound on, but I'm reading the closed captions, and it said, well, because they didn't win the Super Bowl, puts a damper on it. And that's why we have them at number 3. And I was like, that proves my point, right? We do get our idea mixed up with these teams because through 18 games, they were flawless. They were perfect. They blew teams out. But for one game, it completely changed how they were thought of for eternity. And the same thing for, the other example that I have is the 2015-2016 Golden State Warriors. 73-9 is remarkable. We will never see that again. I firmly believe we will never see a team win in the regular season like that again. That's a team that transformed the sport of basketball, but all anyone can think of is LeBron James running down Andre Iguodala and throwing his shot off the backboard and pulling off a 3-1 comeback in that series. All-time great team, but will never be appreciated as such because they fell a game short.
Yeah, and as you were thinking about, I was thinking maybe LeBron has done this twice, because I think he might have ruined the Golden State Warriors, that team, and then also the idea of the Spurs being perfect, even though he wasn't the person, but the Heat. I mean, that game was over, and then Ray Allen hits his shot in Game 6, and then they and you know what's even crazier? In my mind, that's the end of the series. I forgot they had to even go to Game 7.
Yep, they had to play 2 days later.
In my mind, the series ended when Ray Allen hit that shot, but that's not true. And so history kind of shapes and molds all of these ideas. And even when you're talking about the Patriots, I had to go. I was there for this whole thing. I forgot that it was 10 years in between Super Bowl championships for this Patriot dynasty. So, and in between that time, they won some, they lost some, they made it to NFC and AFC championships. Tom Brady got hurt. There's a lot of time within the middle. We just happen to be right here in the middle of this, and this is part of the process.
We'll go from talking about losers in big games to our winners for today's show coming up next.
All my sports. The Game Network. 107.5 The Game in Columbia. 96.9 The Game in Charleston. 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And 100.5 The Game in Florence.
Go to 1075thegame.com and check out our sweet deals, like $50 worth of great eats from Grill Marts for just $25 and a 6-month membership to the YMCA for half price. It's all at 1075thegame.com.
This is a Westwood One Sports Minute.
The Blue Bloods just got blocked. Both Tommy Lloyd and Dusty May have turned down the vacant head coaching position at North Carolina. Lloyd leveraged played the interest into a massive extension at Arizona, while May explicitly informed Michigan that he is staying in Ann Arbor after leading the Wolverines tonight's national championship game. I'm Drake Toll.
What if your instincts could pay off? With Robinhood Prediction Markets, you could put your knowledge to work on the events that matter to you. Prediction Markets isn't just sports. It's the Fed rate decision, your favorite award show, and so much more beyond the playing field. Trade events with Robinhood. Visit Robinhood.com/predict. That's Robinhood.com/predict. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm.
This is the story of the one. As a procurement manager for a hospital system, she keeps every facility in her network stocked and ready. That's why she counts on Grainger to be her single source for thousands of products, from disinfectants to lighting, air filters, and more. And with fast, dependable delivery, Grainger helps her keep every facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Here's a tale of Becky. Didn't know what to do with new meds prescribed and no real cost clue.
She squinted at prices, that can't be right. Then tapped GoodRx and saw the light.
She could get a deal. Book telehealth if she feels.
Learn about those meds without any stress. That one little app does all the rest. Even my horse downloaded it. Dang, save time and money on prescriptions.
Check GoodRx. GoodRx is not insurance.
Indeed presents hires you can't afford to get wrong, like a staff accountant at the height of tax season.
Congrats. Looks like the company owes, $50 in taxes. How about that?
That seems low. Why only 50?
Why do you care so much? It's not your money.
This is the job for sponsored jobs. This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
The Early Game. Yeah! With former Gamecocks Preston Thorne, Elijah Campbell, and Jen Jensen. On the Game Network, 107.5 Game app, and the Game TV radio on YouTube. Road tripping with the Game Gamecocks through March.
For the 6th year in a row, the South Carolina Gamecocks are dancing to the Final Four.
Elijah Campbell covering the USC women at the Final Four in Phoenix.
South Carolina is headed to Phoenix. Pack your bags.
Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas, Lexington, and Forest Lake Travel and Forest Acres. On the Game Network, the 107.5 The Game app, and at the Game TV radio on YouTube.
Than it is about the team. Cannot play with them. Cannot win with them. Cannot coach with them. Can't do it. I want winners.
And of course, we have plenty of winners to give out for an action-packed show today. Brought to you by the Golden Spur, as always. And Preston Thorne, I think the first winner I have, because I'm a first-timer out here, the city of Phoenix. This place rules, man. Great town.
I told you.
You were not kidding.
I told you it's a really cool city.
Best taco I've ever had in my life came in this town. I remember that forever.
And you played it right. Again, when you're out there and you're in the Southwest, you got to go with load up on the guac, load up on the tacos, do the whole deal, man.
Oh, I've had maybe more Mexican food in the last 4 days than I think I can squeeze into a 4-day stretch maybe ever, but it's 100% worth it. Big winner for the city of Phoenix. Also want to give another winner to Heartbreak. Second straight year, Preston Thorne, you're losing a national championship game by a large margin. It takes a lot to get to a national title game or a championship in any sport at any level. And sometimes the things that make sports feel so real life is the heartbreak that you experience in real life is kind of mirrored within the heartbreak that you experience when you do pour in your entire soul into a season and into a team like these players have and fall one game short.
Yeah, because sometimes in life you do fall one game short. And we always talk about the lessons that sports is supposed to teach you, and it's not all about triumph. Sometimes it is the tragedy of the situation because you gave everything you had only to come up short. And that's a lesson that, unfortunately you have to take with you. That being said, I will give my first winner to women's basketball, the game, because what a weekend. Because all through the weekend, there were obviously great players. They were on display. There were great coaches on display. There were storylines. There was compelling controversy, all the things you want to make something really interesting to not only just the people that are following it, but casuals that are coming in. There were all reasons for people to get involved in the game. And the game only continues to grow and get better and better every single year. So kudos to women's basketball for putting on another great tournament.
Yeah. And I don't know if you could have gotten a better collection of teams in your Final Four, because I was going back and forth on our, the Firehouse Subs text line, a really good text, earlier today, talking about how good all the teams were in this entire, event. And then I found the text that said, I'm not sure if it's just me, but this is the first time in a tournament I thought 4 different teams were teams to beat or the best team. At one point, I felt like Texas was the best team in the tournament. Then it was UConn. Then I felt like the Gamecocks were after they beat UConn, and then UCLA demolished Texas. And I said, in South Carolina, I said, wow, they're the best team. And I've responded like, that's a great point. I think if you did play this Final Four 10 different times with 10 various combinations of matchups in the semifinal and then final, you would get a wide range of results. In some years in the sport, that's not the case. I think it would be the case in this year's Final Four of these 4 teams. Those 4 teams were clearly the best in the entire country, and it made for really good basketball.
Yeah, and the thing was, it was absolutely compelling basketball because there were so many things that were happening throughout the games. And it's just like any great TV show. You could have jumped in just now at the Final Four and been entertained, but it's really good if you know all of the backstories leading up to the Final Four. Then it's like, oh, wow, you finally get to see the conclusion of this thing that has been happening all year. So it was absolutely fantastic.
Another winner staying the course. That UCLA team built and built and built for a long time. Gabriela Jaquez was one of the initial, freshmen brought in to build the core, and they got, they did work in the transfer portal, to bring in Lauren Betts after she couldn't get on the floor at Stanford. Then Lauren Betts stays the course. Kiki Rice comes in as a freshman. she stays the course. And then you're able to bring in, supplementary pieces. But that was a team that had a foundation that was built and took losing maybe in the Sweet 16 or getting to the Final Four last year and getting the brakes beaten off of them, by UConn, right? Just got run out of the building in Tampa. I remember being there at that game and watching how non-competitive that was. They stayed the course. Corey Close as a coach kept them on course, and they turned into a national championship. And, there's sometimes you lose to a team and you can still feel good for them because it ultimately ended up being a really good story. That's all we have for today's show. Tyler Head, he's a winner, and you're going to hear him on the Extra Point coming up next. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet studio. Herndon Chevrolet is your hometown dealer. Stop by today or shop online 24/7 at herndonchevy.com.
One last reminder. My friends over at Ecton Law Firm are here for you. If you're having any type of issues when it comes to personal income or business tax issues, it can feel like a lot to get out of, right? A very stressful situation. But let the stress of taxes be taken care of by the Ecton Law Firm. 803-771-9800. That is the number to call to set up that free consultation to talk to John and his team. His local team has been resolving income and business tax issues for good in the state of South Carolina, and let them offer you the peace of mind that you deserve. Let those proven local solutions that have helped thousands and families and businesses just like yours escape that IRS maze. Again, that number is 803-771-9800, or you can always visit them at ectonlawfirm.com. That's ECTONlawfirm.com.
Sponsored by SC Education Lottery. The South Carolina Education Lottery encourages all of their players to learn about your play before you pay. To learn how the odds work, common lottery myths, and the signs of problem gambling, check out sceducationlottery.com/betteryou. Playing the lottery for fun is a win for education.
Explore the world with the 31st Annual Columbia International Festival, April